This
Recordings.
conference will now be recorded.
Perfect. Okay. Finally, here we go. We are back to the actual session that we want to get started. Okay. This session is going to be for next 2 hours. Okay. It's going to be for next 2 hours. We're going to learn a lot about MLOps, and we're going to enjoy the live demo that I provided on top of AWS, and you can able to just take away a lot of knowledge along with the free ebooks that we're going to provide as part of a particular program. Okay, so let's get started with a particular program. So it's on time right now. So okay, so before we getting started, let's have a quick validation. A lot of people have joined new right now, so let's have a quick validation once again, folks. In case if my audio is clear enough, in case if my screen is visible, can you please acknowledge by saying yes in the chat window? Let's get started without wasting much of your valuable time. Okay, thank you so much, thank you so much, thank you so much for mentioning SS in the chat window. Okay, let's get started. Okay, perfect. So before we getting started, okay, so I have decided to provide a good content for you guys for the next 2 hours. So I want to understand my audience definitely, because I can able to understand so what kind of a work that you do, so I can keep some thresholds in my mind so I can able to deliver this value properly. Okay, tell me what exact kind of a work that you do. Are you a data engineer? Are you a data scientist? Are you an ML engineer? Are you a student? Please do mention who you are in the chat window. Let's us know, let people know what exact work that you do. Here we have a Venkat, he mentions as an ML engineer. Perfect. Jai mentions as a data scientist. Sumant mentions he's a DevOps person. Ganesh mentions he's DevOps persons. We have IT manager. We have people from DevOps. Okay, so we have Soumya from data science background. That's perfect. So yeah, go ahead. Please do mention who you are. And we have Patil, who is a data scientist. Praveen says he's a system analyst. Perfect. Swapnil says it's a full stack developer. Okay, Kapil says is a fresher and a data scientist are here. Senior product owner, that's awesome. Oman says is a data scientist. So Max Milleen, I mean, sorry if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. He says he's an AI engineer. Pravath says he's a data science background. Okay, fresher, that's perfect. Okay, that's perfect. A lot of data scientists. I could see a lot of DevOps engineers. I could see some few data engineers also, and I can see a lot of AI peoples. That's awesome. That's good to see. Okay, so let's get started with this program. So there are three promises that we need to keep throughout this particular program. Not to leave this meeting till next 2 hours, so you can able to download. So you can able to gain the valuable content from this. And second thing, you can able to download the free ebooks that we're going to provide. Okay. And third thing, we're going to learn a lot. Okay, let's get started with the particular program without wasting much of the time. Okay, who am I first of all? Right, obviously. So here we go. I hope you should be able to see me on your screen. Probably yes. Hi, this is Shah. I'm going to be trying for the next 2 hours. I'm the person who's going to teach you MLOps. I'm going to introduce you to the world of MLOps, and I'm just thinking about, okay, what does your future looks like in maybe next 5 years or maybe next 3 years, for example. Okay, let's get started. So my name is Sharad Kumar. I'm a founder and CEO of Cyclone Technologies. What we do, so we do multiple stuff at trainings, I mean retail and corporate trainings, and we also help corporates to migrate to the cloud platforms, helping them building pipelines, all this stuff. Okay, personally I have helped more than, let's say, 5,000 plus people like you guys, like data scientists, ML engineers, it may be let's say MLOps professionals, I mean, in order to become a specialist in terms of MLOps. Okay, more about us later. Let's get started with an actual session, right? So I'm going to disable this particular camera, otherwise you'll be having a screen feed towards the left side when I provide the recordings. Okay, just to save some bandwidth, let me just disable my camera. So now let's get started. Okay, so what are the highlights of this particular program? So what we are really focused today to learn is about 3 important pillars. I mean, what is really MLOps? Right? What is this MLOps? A lot of people talks about that, right? So production deployment, for example, deployment, monitoring your ML model, automation, CI/CD, right? A lot of words, right? Yeah, let's talk about that one. And definitely the question that everyone asks, so what it takes to master MLOps? We will talk about that. And then, so job opportunities for MLOps, like how does it look like if you have a MLOps skill sets on top of your resume? So what are the different opportunities that you could able to expect, right? Those are the things. Okay, so let's get started. So whatever the session that we conduct, folks, we would just start with this particular picture. Okay, so what are the session that we conduct? We just start with this particular picture. What do you mean by that? I want you folks to observe this particular picture for the next 10 seconds. That's it, not pretty much long. Try to observe this particular picture for the next 10 seconds. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. That's it, pretty much simple. Go ahead, start observing this picture. Okay, perfect. I hope, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's a pretty much simple picture. What is there to observe in this, right? Probably you might be asking, well, asking that particular question. So yeah, please use your chat window. Let's try to describe what is this picture is about. What do you find in this particular picture? Try to describe this picture, okay, in your chat window. Go ahead, let's do it. There is a surprise behind that. Yeah, go ahead. Please describe it, what it is. Okay. So here we have Soumya says it's a park, right? And Jai says it's a dog walk. And Siddha says it's a dog park. Shravan says, okay, grass, road, dogs, human, beach. Perfect, right? That's good. I really appreciate that. But that's not my question, okay? Okay, my question is this. This is my real question. How do you came to know this is a picture of a park, right? How do you know that? And my question is, you're saying it's a dog. There are dogs, right? You are saying there is a dog here, there's a dog here, there is a dog here, and there's a man here, there's a woman here. So my question is, how do you know this is a picture of a park? How do you know this is a picture of a woman? And how do you know this is a picture of a dog? And this is a picture of a dog which is carrying a ball in his mouth, right? How do you know that in the first hand, right? Just try to question yourself, right? What is this? Well, how do you came to know that, right? So basically, let's say we could able to answer this in some way. Let's consider that. What if I'm trying to display the same picture to a newborn baby? Let's consider that I'm trying to display this particular picture to a newborn baby. Can a baby could able to recognize, okay, what is this picture is about? Can baby recognize, or can a baby recognize, or maybe describe this is a picture of a dog, or this is a picture of a man, and this is a picture of a grass, or maybe this is a picture of a or maybe a trees, for example. Can a newborn baby, let's consider the baby is less than 1 year, less than 1 year old, can a baby describe that? Pretty much not, right? So definitely we understand that. So what happens pretty much, let's say, once we started growing, let's say we go for a school education, right? Let's say we started educating, so we will be start learning things. We will be start learning things from our parents. Let's say we will be start learning things from books. We started learning how to walk, right? So why am I talking about this, right? So we are the best examples of what we call it today as an AI, isn't it? So consider that as a human beings, let's say we're born with nothing, and let's say we started learning different stuff, starting from walking, understanding people, understanding an environment, right? And started educating ourselves, right? Started learning things and finally getting educated and finally getting a degree and designing our life together, right? We are the best examples of what we call it as today a data science or ML or maybe AI, right? Ultimately. So, and again, human beings are today trying to replicate the same exact things. The same way we could able to learn something, and let's say we could able to make a predictions, we could able to let's say predict the future, for example, right? So for example, one good validation what I could able to say, today you guys decided to spend your valuable 2 hours with me, believing that Sharat is going to teach you some awesome stuff that is going to help you in the future. That's your decision. You could able to predict MLOps as a future. That's why you guys are here. So human beings are trying to replicate the same things. The same way, the way that we could able to learn a data and we could able to make some predictions, we could able to forecast what's going to happen. Human being wants to teach the same exact things with this dumb missions, right? So ultimately, let's try to put it in this way, right? So I want to teach a data to this machine. So once the machine understands the data, a pattern from it, so then I want to ask this machine to make some predictions. I want this machine to ask some forecast, what's going to happen in the future, isn't it? So let's try to put it in this way. Let's say I have a data, right? So let's say a data can be a text file, a data can be a CSV file or something. Okay. So let's say I'm going to teach this data. What is this data? Let me just provide you some example. Let's consider this data is an electricity consumption data in your home. Let's consider that I'm going to install a sensors in your home. Let's say I'm going to collect the amount of electricity that your washing machine, water geyser, maybe any electrical appliances that you have in your home. Let's say I collect this data for the next 3 years. Let's say I might have some 30,000 data points, right? I might have some 30,000 data points. So let's say my goal is pretty much simple. I want to teach this data to this machine, so machine can able to understand the different patterns from it. What do you mean by that? So this data says that how do you consume your electricity in autumn? Let's say in spring, it may be autumn, it may be winter, and maybe in summer, right? So let's say a machine understands the various different patterns from it. So once machine understands everything, so let's say I might ask this machine to make some forecast. I could able to ask this machine to forecast what I would be paying for the next 1 month. What would be the electricity bills that I will be paying for the first month, what I will be paying for the second month, what I will be paying for the next 6 months, right? This is all about machine learning and a data science, maybe AI, what we are talking about, right? Obviously, there's a lot of things going around. Otherwise, let's say I want to teach my machine to understand the difference between an apple or an orange, for example. Okay, so let's say, for example, I have a bunch of pictures of an apple, right? Or maybe let's say I have a bunch of pictures of an orange. Okay, so let's say I'm going to teach a different pictures of an apples and orange. Let's say I'm going to put let's say a camera in front of my machine, for example, and let's say I'm going to put an apple. Let's say let's consider this as an apple in front of a camera. So then I could able to ask this machine to predict what you could able to find in that particular picture. So machine could say it's it's an apple, it's a mango, it may be orange, whatever it is. We call it as a computer vision, right? And again, the best example is we do use computer vision or maybe AI at the end of the day, what we used to call in your mobile phones, right? So every smartphone today has a face unlocking system. If you check out your smartphones, every phone could be unlocked through your face. I mean, it could recognize your face, it could be able to unlock your face. I mean, it could be able to unlock your entire phone ultimately, right? So that's a good example of saying that we are in an age of AI already, right? So we are, and again, you just consider the amount of tools that we use today. We use Google Voice Assistant, we use ChatGPT, right? So ultimate question here is, what makes this machine learning or maybe AI tools, what we used to call, more powerful? What makes this AI run basically? What is really happening in the back end? So what makes this AI really running? That's where the MLOps comes into the picture. That's where we are really serious to understand, right? But here we are not here to understand what is exactly ML or maybe data science. We are here to understand what makes this AI run, what makes this AI alive, right? That's what exactly we want to discuss. To understand this, let's proceed. Let's try to understand what would be the typical workflow of creating a successful ML model, right? Let's begin right now. So what makes an organization really successful, right? Let's consider what makes a Netflix really successful, right? What makes let's say Redbus, or maybe what makes a Uber really successful in building ML models, why they are really successful, for example, right? Yeah, let's have that particular discussion, right? Consider that I mentioned that. So we are the best examples of AI or maybe data science or ML, what we are talking, right? Consider that we consume a data in many different fashions, isn't it? So I mean, we consume data through our ears, we consume a data through our eyes, we consume a data through our sense and different stuff. Similarly, a machine could able to consume a data in many different fashions. I mean, let's consider that we are talking about machine learning, data science. We teach data to our machines. A machine could able to consume a data in many ways. A data could be a picture, a data could be a CSV files, a data could be a JSON file, a data could be a simple text file, right? So how do we start our journey? Let's say now we have a data, perfect. Let's say we do something called data preparation, our preparation initially. So what is this data preparation? Data preparation is nothing but, it's nothing but what we do in our kitchen, basically, like what we do in our kitchen, obviously cooking. It's again the process of cooking. So what we do, let's say if I want to cook some dishes, let's say I bring some vegetables, I bring some ingredients, let's say I clean my vegetables, I remove unnecessary stuff, I put some ingredients and masala, all those stuff, then I could start preparing my food, right? It's the same exact process when it comes to data preparation, what we are talking in terms of data science. So what we do in a data science, right, in data preparation, let's say a real-time data that is coming from your customers that comes with a lot of garbages in it. You might have some missing data, outliers, blah, 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 a lot of stuff, right? So we use various different tools in order to prepare that particular data, clean it, transform it if it is necessary, okay? So then comes, let's say we use IDEs like Jupyter Notebooks, it may be VS Code, or maybe something on AWS, something on Azure, something on GCP, or something on open source tools if you want to use, right? So let's say here we use different kind of IDEs in order to write a script. We might use Python, we might use R, blah, 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 whatever you want, whatever you are comfortable at. So what we do in that particular script, in that script, I mentioned that what kind of a machine I'm going to use in order to train my ML model, right? Where is my data is coming from? Where am I going to store my ML model? Let's say we define everything over there. Okay, so once I mentioned what is a script, what is a machine that I'm going to use, let's say once, then I picked that particular machine that I mentioned in that particular script. I started feeding a data that I prepared right? That's what exactly I do. Let's say I have a data that is prepared. Let's say now I've started feeding that particular data to this particular machine. So what happens? Now machine starts understanding various different patterns from that data that I have already cleaned, right? So now machine understands all the pattern and then it produces something called machine learning model, right? What is this machine learning model? Definitely that's the one which is going to be part of your final end product, correct? So what we do, okay, now we have an ML model, can we just go and deploy it? No, it won't work like that. So let's say this is where something called model registries comes into the picture. So what is this model registries? Today you might have only one model, but tomorrow you might have 1,000 ML models. What you do? Where you store that? We cannot put it in a pen drive. We cannot put it in a folder. No, it won't work like that, right? So we're going to use something called model registries in order to store, or maybe in order to version our ML models actually. Okay, so this is where we version our ML models. Then what we do? Now we have a ML model in a model registry. So now we need to deploy it. Let's say now I want to deploy it in a container servers. Let's say I want to deploy it in a Kubernetes servers. Let's say I want to deploy it in a cloud. Let's say I want to deploy it on an edge device. There are many deployment processes that we want to follow, isn't it? So let's say consider that we deployed it somewhere. Let's say we deployed it on a container service. Then what happens? Obviously, finally we have deployed our ML model. Now our actual customers comes into the picture. Right now, let's say we build a beautiful web application, a beautiful web Android application, so where our customers comes and interact with that ML model, isn't it? So this is the actual process of building ML models actually, right? So we use various different programming languages for that. So we might use Python, we might use R, even C++ and Java, it's possible today, right? In order to build this actual typical workflow of building an ML model. Okay, definitely we understand that. Okay, what is MLOps then? The question remains actually exactly same. What is MLOps? Okay, in order to understand this MLOps, we have to understand the current state of machine learning in the world. I mean, to understand what is MLOps, we have to understand what's happening in every organization today, what's happening in every startups today. Okay, to understand this, let's try to do a time travel. Who is interested to go for a past? Okay, I'm just kidding. Let's say so what I'm trying to say, let's say we talk about what's really happening on last decade actually. Okay, so what is really happening? What happened exactly last 10 years ago? So last 10 years, I mean, I'm talking about last decade. So that is the point. Every organization at that particular time, they had a lot of data sitting in their databases, lot of data sitting in their storage platforms, doing nothing actually. Okay, so at that point they decided, okay, we have a lot of data sitting in our databases, so why can't we add some value to it? That's the point they started hiring a lot of data engineers, a lot of data scientists to build actual ML model. But the problem is the focus for every organization's last 10 years is just to build an ML model. The focus is not to operationalize that ML model. I mean, they didn't plan to get that ML models to production actually. That's the problem. And today, what's happening today? I mean, in the year of 2023, what I'm trying to talk. So in year of 2023, 53% of an organizations who have POC, I mean the proof of concept, they are making into production actually. It takes an average of 9 months for every organizations to go to that particular position. So, and it is expected by end of 2024, I'm not talking about the next 10 years, and I'm not talking about next 5 years, I'm talking about just 1 year. By end of 2024, we could be able to expect 75% of an organizations will shift from piloting to operationalizing their AI. I mean, the people who are building ML models for last 10 years, they will be getting into production. Okay, isn't it simple? No, because getting into the production, they need a solid MLOps pipeline, right? Definitely, that's a game here. So that's the deal. So you can able to question yourself. Let's say we are talking about AI a lot of times, right? Every time if you go open an Instagram, let's say every time if you go open a LinkedIn or maybe Facebook, you see a lot of information about AI. Just question yourself, why didn't ChatGPT release last 5 years ago? Why did it release last year? And why did Meta release a lot of AI last 4 weeks ago? Why Google I/O last 3 weeks ago released a lot of AI? Why AI is coming a lot of things outside today? Why not last year, right? So that's the question that we need to ask. Okay, so what actually powers AI? It's actually MLOps. Let's have a discussion right now. Let's get into the actual program right now. What is MLOps? MLOps stands for machine learning operations. MLOps stands for machine learning operations. So basically, it's a set of a practice for collaboration and communication between the various stakeholders who are part of building ML model. It may be data scientists, it may be operational team. So tell me something. Do you think data scientist is the only person who is actually building an ML model here? He's the only person who is ensuring the success of an organization? Definitely not. There are various different stakeholders who are part of an organization who is building an ML model. I mean, ML projects basically. So it can be a data engineer, it can be a data analyst, it can be a data scientist, it can be ML engineer, it can be research scientist. There are a lot of different peoples we can talk about, right? So basically, so we do apply this MLOps practices in order to increase the quality and simplifying the management process of you deploying ML models actually, okay? So basically an ideology behind MLOps, it's all about Automation, automation, automation. Simple. Okay. So it's a process of automating the deployment of your machine learning models. It might be maybe deployment of your deep learning models on a large production scale environment. That's all about MLOps. But we do use a lot of tools here in order to build this MLOps pipelines. Let's talk about that too. Before we talk about that, we will talk about MLOps in high level. So the high level view of MLOps actually. So basically, as I'm talking about, MLOps is a discipline that sits intersection between different domains of ML. It may be machine learning, it may be DevOps, it may be data engineering. Okay, so the intersection, what we used to call as MLOps basically. Let's say this intersection of these practices, when it comes together, we can really drive the value how we build, deliver, and manage your machine learning models. So basically, as a discipline, it enabled with a core set of practices like coming with people's technology and process together. Okay, that's good. So let's try to understand what is really challenges here. What's the real deal with MLOps? Why it is challenging? Why people used to call it really challenging? Okay, let's talk about that. So MLOps challenges. Let's get started. So we understand in the process of let's say creating a machine learning workflows, we ran into a lot of different challenges. We know that, let's say when it comes to ML model building, it involves multiple steps, obviously. Data preparation steps, it might be model training steps, it might be model deployment steps, it might be, right? That's what we do. So let's try to understand the difficulties in each and every aspect. So for example, what we do in our data preparation, step over here, right? So in data preparation step might contain one to many tasks actually. Let's say we take our raw data, let's say we take our raw customer data, and let's say we want to eventually transform that into training data set, test data set, evaluation data set, right? We split it. So then let's say what we do in our model training. So in a model training step, you might have some additional steps inside your model training. So whether you are doing single model training, or maybe you are trying to run multiple different experiments using hyperparameter optimization, right? So we never stick to, let's say, one single run. Until we get a better ML model, we do a lot of hyperparameter tuning, right? That's good, perfect. Then what we do in model deployment, let's say we figured out the best version of an ML model right now. So now we need to talk about deployment. So how do we deploy? Let's say, what is the process? What is the problems behind that? Let's say when it comes to model deployment, we might have only one step in a workflow, or it could have many tasks underneath it actually. Let's say it could be deploying to a staging environment. Let's say you have a different stages here. Let's say you want to deploy your ML models to staging environment. Let's say you want to deploy your ML models to production environment. And even though, let's say if you're trying to deploy to different stages, you need to have a more control over that. So for example, let's say I have a two different environment. Let's say I call it as a dev environment, I call it as a production environment, right? I just don't, let's say if I train my ML model, I don't want to just go and deploy it to the dev or production. It won't work like that, right? You need to evaluate, you need to check manually, maybe sometimes manually you want to check, okay, is that really working good? Is that producing the expected result that I'm looking forward, right? So let's say someone, a senior person in your team, he comes manually and hits a button, says deploy. For example, in order to deploy your ML model to dev, or maybe in order to deploy your ML model to production, right? That's what it happens. That's a best practice what we need to follow. So what I'm trying to talk here is basically there are a lot of different steps, a lot of different dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides, let's say, some iteration across a life cycle, and also to provide, let's say, end-to-end traceability. That's really important, right? It's not that you could be able to do data preparation, model training, and model deployment. We need to track each and every step. We need to have a logs, metrics that will be collected from starting from data preparation to model training to model deployment, actually, right? So that's what exactly what we are talking about. This steps basically involves will be complicated and really challenging. So, and you guys, you professionals have a lot of questions. Okay, Sharath, I have heard about something called DevOps, right? Is that DevOps and MLOps is exactly same? You might ask that particular question to me. Perfectly. Let's talk about that too. So MLOps challenge is similar to DevOps actually. So DevOps, what is this DevOps? Putting it in a very simple way, DevOps is all about software development lifecycle. Let's say if you ask me a question, how do I automate the software delivery? I will say DevOps. We use DevOps practices. Okay. So, but DevOps, we do use DevOps tools in MLOps. I mean, the traditional DevOps tools are part of MLOps. Basically, that's what we are talking about. The challenges in operationalizing ML models has a lot of common things compared with the software production actually. I mean, in case if you have heard about something called CI/CD, we do use the same kind of a CI/CD tools in MLOps. We use the same kind of a source and version control tools in MLOps actually. Let's talk about CI/CD, all those stuff in upcoming slides actually. Okay, but CI/CD tools and source version control tools are not enough for us to build MLOps pipeline. Actually, you know that a lot of times what I'm talking about, the CI/CD tools aren't necessarily built for machine learning separately. I mean, in reality, you might need, let's say, a different combinations of tools and integration sometime that purpose built for data preparation. I mean, you need a purpose built tool for data preparation. You need purpose built tool for model training. You need a purpose built for deployment also. So, I mean, all of these things, let's say, can be complicated and challenging to, let's say, stitch together. I mean, what do you mean by stitching is nothing but, you know that data preparation step has to talk to your model training step, and your model training step has to talk to your model deployment step. We need to stitch these things together actually. Let's say when it comes to MLOps, we use various different tools actually. For example, we need to have a tools for sources. We need to use a tools for ML models actually. I mean, tracking and versioning your ML models. We need to have a tools in order to register your ML model. I mean, versioning your ML model, or maybe versioning your artifacts, for example. So in order to understand this, let me tell you a very simple story. It's not a boring story, but it's going to be a very interesting story. Okay, let's consider that we are everyone together. Let's say we are building an ML model for data owners. It's on 2019. Let's consider that we are building an ML model around 2019 for a data owners in order to predict what is the sales they're going to make based on a ticket sales. Okay, let's say we didn't care about MLOps at that time. We didn't do automation, nothing. Okay, let's say we all focused on building a quality ML model. We ensured that we had higher accurate ML model. Okay, let's say we deployed it on some kind of a platforms like Streamlit, all the stuff, but there's no automation. So everyone expected that this model is going to work for next 10 years without any problem for my client. But that particular model didn't work. The model failed in next 2 months actually. Right? Really sad, right? What is the reason? So because there is no automation around it. For example, I'm talking about 2019. It's a time where COVID hits, right? So do you remember that once COVID comes into the picture, no one went to data, everyone went to their homes. So, and again, your model become useless, right? And again, let's consider what's happened during COVID. A customer behavior started shifting. I mean, during COVID, you could able to see that a lot of OTTs come to the picture. We started signing up for Amazon Prime. We started signing up for Netflix or some other OTT platforms that are available today. And you could able to see that people are not going for theaters. People are spending more time in online movie streaming services. And during after COVID also today, there are a minor amount of people who stop going for theaters. I mean, still people go for theaters maybe for your favorite actor or maybe actress. Correct, isn't it? So what is really happening? Why am I providing this example? Because your customers are your data, isn't it? So where is the tool? Did you use the tool in order to version your data? Because your customer behavior is changing every day. So do you use tools in order to version your data? This is where tools like DVC, data version tools, comes into the picture in order to version your data. So cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, GCP, they have their own tools. Okay, that's the first step. And second step, okay, as a data scientist, as a data engineer, we will be writing a lot of scripts, isn't it? We write Python, right? We write code in R. Okay, this code keeps on changing in the future. So did you use the tools in order to version your data? So I'm talking about source and version control. I mean, like a tools like GitHub, right? In order to version your data. Then comes model training process. So let's say you have 3 versions of your ML model. As I mentioned, 3 customer behaviors, 3 different versions of ML model. That means you have 3 different versions of ML model. So where are you storing all these ML models? How are you managing a version for it? That's a question. Are you going to put it in a pen drive? Are you going to put it in a zip file? Are you going to put it in a storage platforms? No, it won't work like that. Because we need to use something called model registries in order to version our ML models basically. So we can able to pick up best version from that, and we could able to deploy it. Pretty much simple, right? That's why we need to use model registries. Then we call it as something called feature store. And again, let's say we have deployed our ML model. Is that job is over for you? No, not exactly. The job is not yet over. We need to monitor the ML model which is deployed in a production. We need to ensure that it is producing a quality results. There is no data drift. There is no concept drift. There is no data quality mismatch. There is no data is biased. A lot of things to check, right? So that is where we need to talk about all these tools, okay, in this particular program. Let's go to the next step. Okay, that's good. How do I master? Sharath, how do I master in MLOps? Just can you please tell that? Okay, let's go to that. So in order to understand that, we need to understand the components of MLOps. Okay, that's where it starts actually. So what is the components of MLOps? let's get started. So obviously it's a basic step. Every organization's first initially they get started with a use case discovery. They have to solve some problem, and they need to have a data. So once they have a data, they have a data engineering, they do data engineering stuff. They have a data engineers, for example. Let's say they pull up a data, clean it, prepare it, they build data pipelines, all those stuff. So then comes actually building a machine learning pipeline. This is where we build a machine learning pipelines for continuous training, right? We won't train our ML model once, we will need to retrain it again and again. Not manually you're hitting a run button to train your ML model. We want to do automation, right? Automated data preparation, model training, and model deployment. So then comes the deployment of your ML model, then comes the production monitoring. That's the pretty much the component. Let's say if I want to dive deep into each and every stuff, okay, let's say the first, it starts from a business understanding. Let's say we understand a business first of all, right? We understand the underlying business they are working on, then we identify that particular use case, then we understand the data. So what do you mean by understanding a data? First, we need to check if there is any availability of a data for organization, right? If they don't have a data, talking about ML is useless, right? So let's say then they do feasibility study. Is this product, is this project is feasible? Can we do it? Blah, blah, blah. Let's say they decide everything. And then comes the actual data preparation stuff. They started hiring data engineers. They start preparing their data. So then they pick the algorithm. So obviously to solve a problem, we need to pick the best algorithm that it could able to solve this particular problem. So then we go for a model building and training step. This is where, let's say we start training our ML model, we teach a data to a machine, then we produce ML model. And again, you don't stop with one experiment. Let's say we want to do a lot of different experimentation. I mean, we need to do a lot of hyperparameter tuning in order to come up with the best ML model. Okay, then finally, let's consider that you produced your ML model. Now we need to evaluate. We need to evaluate, is that really working good? Is this according to my expectations or not? Then let's say once we extract the metrics from it, let's say then we discuss about, let's say I want to serve this ML model. So this is where we talk about a deployment. Okay, so let's say as part of a deployment, we need to build an automation. Let's say we want to integrate that with the CI/CD pipelines. So I don't want to manually go and deploy every time. I don't want to manually build my ML model. Let's say you have a ML model. For example, let's say you have a PKL file, a pickle file. Let's say you don't want to manually each and every time pack your ML model. Let's say you want to deploy it to your Docker service. Let's say you want to deploy it to a Kubernetes service, for example. You want to build an automation where automatically things happens and automatically this operation happens. So then comes monitoring. So monitoring doesn't mean that, okay, we go to monitor your ML model only. We need to monitor the entire infrastructure that we have built. We need to monitor the infrastructure for data preparation, model training, model deployment, model monitoring, all this stuff. Okay, so then we need to keep on optimizing it. We need to keep on learn the lessons and we keep on optimizing it. So let's say if we want to dive deep into each and every aspect. So the use case, as part of a use case discovery, this is where a business analyst in your organization, along with a data scientist, so they will be sitting together in order to define a business problem and transforming that business problem into the viable problem statement. Okay, so then they will be they will be setting some objectives to solve by that particular problem with the associated KPIs. A KPI stands for key performance indicators, which is the indicators of a success, for example. So then comes data engineering stuff. Okay, so this is where collaboration between a data engineer and a data scientist will happen. So they decide, okay, data engineer and data scientist, okay, how are we going to get a data? From where we are going to get a, from where are we going to get a data? How are we going to build our pipelines for pulling a data and do this data preparation, processing and validation, right? We do all this stuff. So then comes building a machine learning pipelines. Okay, so now we decide, okay, in your organization, they want to use AWS. Okay, we build pipelines on AWS or Azure or GCP. Maybe you guys are looking forward for building pipelines on open source tools like Kubeflow. Okay, let's go and use Kubeflow. So we do those stuff and we decide to build actual ML pipelines. And this is where our data scientists will do designing and deployment all together. And he will be conducting a lot of different experimentation and testings in order to come up with the best quality ML model and making sure the platform keeps track of data and model linearage with the associated KPIs at the end of the day. So then comes production deployment. Let's say now once we have produced the quality ML model, so now we need to decide in order to deploy our ML model on top of a secure and seamless deployment process what we want to create. Let's say in your organization you want to deploy your ML model on a public cloud, or maybe you want to deploy it on premises or a hybrid. As I mentioned, it can be edge devices or something. So then comes production monitoring. So we need to keep on monitoring our ML model with the model monitoring tools which might be available in a cloud platform, or maybe the model monitoring tools which might be available on the open source tools, for example. So we need to keep on monitor our ML model using the configured KPIs. We need to keep on looking for the changes in your input data distribution, or maybe changes in your model performance actually. Okay. So now saying that, let's try to get into the actual stuff. Okay, this is the very important slide which is going to provide the complete clarity regarding MLOps actually. So what does an MLOps pipeline actually looks like? What are the tools it will have? So the ultimate aim for every organization is to move from building an automated ML workflow to a completely integrated CI/CD pipeline. At the end of the day, every organizations are willing to go to a complete incorporated CI/CD pipeline. Okay, what is there in completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines? Let's have a discussion now. Okay. Okay, perfect. I had enough water right now. Gained some lot of energy. Let's get started now. Okay, so now every organizations actually they start from ML project identification. Let's consider that okay, they have identified an ML project they want to work. Okay, all the stories behind. So now let's say we get started with the data. As I mentioned, I mentioned that there are high chances that your data will change, your customer behavior will change, underlying business that you're working environment will change. That means your data is getting changed. So where are the tools that you're going to use in order to version your data? This is where a data version control tools comes into the picture. So where we use it in order to version our data. So then comes a pre-processing step. So in data pre-processing step, or maybe in a model building step, our data engineers will write a lot of code, right? They will write code in Python and maybe in R or maybe various different languages. So this is where our data engineers or maybe our data scientists, they will use code repositories as per your organization want to use it. Maybe something on AWS, something on Azure, or maybe you want to use GitHub itself in order to version your code basically, right? Okay, that's perfect, that's good. So now let's say we want to get started with our actual model training step. Okay, as part of a model training step, what you need to have access to data, and more than that, you need to have access to the features, isn't it? So where are these features are coming from? This is where a feature store comes into the picture. Putting it in a very simplest form, a feature store is nothing but a schema repository where you have a schema of your features. Okay, a schema, the data type of it. But a feature store doesn't store any data over there. Okay, so we use our feature store in order to fetch features, and based on that features, we fetch a data that we need. And again, your features has to be versioned. That's where we use feature store. Okay, that's perfect. We have a features, we have a data, that's good. So now what happens after model training? Let's say we will be producing our model artifacts. So what is this model artifacts? So model artifacts is basically which has a metadata of your ML model along with your ML model actually, right? Let's say we produce our ML model right now. So where are we going to store this ML model? Are we going to store it in a pen drive? Are we going to store it in a zip file? No, it doesn't work like that. So this is where a model registries comes into the picture. AWS has its own model registry, Azure has its own, GCP has its own. Otherwise, okay, in my organization, we're going to use open source tools. I don't want to use cloud platform. We can able to use tools like MLflow in order to version your ML model. That's good. Okay, now I have a ML versions, ML model versions in model registry. Let's have a version number 1, version number 2, version number 3, for example. Let's say you believe that version number 3 has the good quality. Let's say you decide you want to deploy this. Okay, now what I do, I take this version number 3. Let's say I deploy it on the real-time endpoint. Okay, then comes integration and again building an automation process. Let's say an automation process, something like, let's say we plug in our model monitoring tools, a CI/CD tools, all this stuff. What happens? This model monitoring tools will keep on, let's say, monitoring your ML model, and it will keep on sending a signal to your CI/CD pipelines. And then along with that, we have something called automated quality gates. What is this automated quality gates? You might have never heard about it, right? Perfect. What is this automated quality gates? Are nothing but a quality gate which decides, is this a best model to be deployed or not? So consider that, let's say I'm building an ML model, right? So where I have, let's say I'm using regression, for example, or any metrics that you're trying to calculate. Let's say I'm calculating my MSE score. Let's say I'm talking about mean square error. Let's say I'm going to decide in a way, in case if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, if this satisfies this condition, then only it will go and register my model to my model registry. If it is not less than or equal to 7, it's going to simply neglect. It's not going to register my model to model registry. So that's how the quality gates works. So then you can also use this automated quality gates on a data preparation side also. Why? How do I use it? So you can able to use this automated quality gates on data preparation side. I mean, you can able to have data checkpoints in order to check whether your data has been cleaned enough. Is this free from outliers? Is this free from missing values? Is that free from biased data? So we can able to use automated quality gates over there. Perfect, that's good. Then it's really important to have an end-to-end traceability. We need to track what's happening in your data preparation step. We need to track what's happening in your model training, what's happening in your model deployment, and what's happening post-deployment, monitoring your ML models, right? So this is what it takes to build a successful machine learning projects. This is what it takes to build a successful ML pipelines. That's perfect. What are the tools, Sharad? Can you just give me those tools? Definitely, I'm going to talk about that. So before that, you might have a question. Sharad, I'm a data scientist. I'm a data engineer. I'm a DevOps person. What am I going to do? What is my roles and what are my responsibilities here? You might have a question. So let's answer that. So what are the different roles involved in building this MLOps pipelines basically? So before that, so definitely we need to understand that developing a successful machine learning project involves varieties of experience. There's no doubt about it. It needs, let's say, it requires, let's say, extreme collaboration among the teams. That's why it is called MLOps, collaboration and communication between a team. MLOps is not just for data scientists. It's for everyone who is part of building ML pipelines. It's for DevOps people. I mean, DevOps people who are going to work with ML project deployment. It's for data scientists. It's for data analysts, research scientists, or maybe for developers even. Okay. So before we getting started, in order to understand the different roles that are available in organizations, so definitely each and every organizations will have a different roles actually. Okay. So how do they come up with these different roles? It depends on the resources. Do they have enough resources? Do they have enough fundings? Do they have enough funds to hire various different people? Do they have enough resources to hire a different team for different job? Maybe I need a dedicated data scientist team, a dedicated data engineering team, a dedicated DevOps team. Do they have resources? That's the first question that comes into the picture. But usually what happens, if you see the reality in MNCs, you might see that dedicated roles. They have a dedicated data engineering team, dedicated data scientist team, dedicated DevOps team, dedicated, let's say, ML engineering team. So, but most of the times in other mid-level organizations, you will see that a club roles. So a data scientist will be doing both data science workloads and ML engineering workloads. That's reality. That's how it happens. So, and again, in few organizations, let's say you might be doing both data engineering and data science along with that. Okay. So that's a reality. Let's try to understand. So what these people actually do, right? Let's say when it comes to our data analyst. So he will be working closely with our product manager and business team. Basically, the ultimate goal for our data analyst in order to drive insights from a user data. So he will be using various different tools like SQL, Excel sheets, a range of data visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI, right? So then comes our actual data engineer. The ultimate goal for him to build an infrastructure to collect, transform, and process and store the data. He will be using tools like ETL tools, Spark, Hadoop tools in order to process this data. So then comes our dear data scientist. Obviously, he will be building an ML model, which is going to become a final end product. I mean, it's going to be part of a product. So then comes research or maybe applied scientist. So ultimately, you don't see this particular roles in every organization. So organizations who are working on a cutting edge technologies, they will be having this kind of roles. We can say Google, Amazon, or maybe Microsoft, for example. So then comes our ML engineers. So obviously, our ML engineers, we can say they are the deployment peoples. Okay, so I mean, ultimately their work, I mean, ML engineering work, it will be integrated. I mean, they will be working closely with data engineers also, but they will be majorly focusing on deploying the ML models, which is actually built by our data scientists. So they will be working with the related infrastructures and those things actually. Perfect. So then comes our developers, or maybe so in when it comes to MLOps, we don't call it as DevOps engineers, we call it as ML engineers actually. Okay, so DevOps peoples are actually ML engineers. We don't call it as DevOps peoples here. Okay, so that's the difference. So then it comes to developers, So developers are basically our last piece of a puzzle. I mean, so this people's, they integrates everything that we have built so far with the main application. They will be building an application which is customer facing, right? So obviously the things what data analysts or data engineers or data scientists does, it's never going to be faced. Obviously the one that is built by our developers is going to be a customer facing. I mean, they will be building an Android application or maybe a web application which will be used by our customers ultimately. Okay, so what's the difference here? Okay, we discussed a lot. What's the major difference between, let's say, DevOps or maybe MLOps? So when it comes to DevOps, we all care about building a generic application, a web app, maybe let's say an Android app or something, right? So here we will be using some standard set of libraries to solve a specific use case. And when it comes to versioning, we use especially which involves tracking changes on your code and artifacts, basically. I mean, artifacts is basically your application. So the artifacts would be your executable jar files when it comes to DevOps. And validation, we might do unit testing, for example. So the different roles were part of MLOps, we can say software engineers and DevOps engineers. But let's say when it comes to MLOps, so we are here to build an ML model in order to make predictions, otherwise to feed inferences, basically, right? So here, when it comes to building an ML projects, right? If you're a data scientist or maybe data engineer, you know that we use broad scope of tools, languages, and libraries to build an actual ML model. That's the reality, isn't it? So we use various different tools, like tools for data versioning, model artifacts, model registries, source version controls, and stuff. Our artifacts would be, let's say, serialization files, and our validation would be on a model performance, right? We evaluate this metrics to calculate your the model quality. And again, here we have a different roles who are involved. I didn't specify all the roles, I just specified data scientist and ML engineers, but you can consider all these roles over here. Perfect. Let's jump into the actual tools actually. So what are these different MLOps tools that are available in the market? Let's consider that. Once after completing our MLOps specialization program, I mean the actual course that we're going to start from 1st of July. So let's say if you're a person, someone who is going to build an actual pipeline for your organization, how do you pick a tool, right? How do you pick and evaluate this is a tool that is going to work fine for your organization? There are some standards that we could able to follow. The key features of picking an MLOps tools. Okay, let's get started. The first comes either you might go with open source or a closed source tool. Let's say you want to go for a free tool that is available in the market. Definitely, open source tools are always free, isn't it? Obviously. But the only problem in using open source tools, I mean, would be like, let's say you might be having a very few less developers, and let's say sometimes you don't have enough documentation on that open source tools to support you, or maybe there's no lot of support from the creators. Obviously, that would be the problem. So then comes platform versus specific tool. What do you mean by that? Let's say you want to go for a commercial platform, like a subscription platform. There are tools that are available in the market where you can pay a monthly subscription, where they provide a platform for you to build a complete MLOps pipeline. Otherwise, let's say you want to go for a cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP ultimately, where you can able to build a complete pipelines for your organization from a scratch. You need to also look for that. And then comes model and production environment monitoring. Okay, the tool that you're going to pick for your organization, does it have a tools in order to monitor your machine learning models? And let's say you want to monitor your entire environment, the environment that you build for building MLOps pipelines, and to ensure that your production bugs are documented and addressed in correct time. So then comes, when it comes to your MLOps team, they keep on catching up the things like, okay, security and compliance is concerns. So then comes model templating and cataloging, a very, very important scenario to be considered. Consider that today you are building an MLOps pipeline, right? And you're not going to build only one MLOps pipeline in your lifetime, isn't it? You're going to work for 1,000 clients tomorrow, right? You don't want to reinvent your wheel again and again, right? That's where this templating and cataloging process comes into picture. Let's say you could able to produce success once, you could able to replicate that multiple times through this templating and cataloging. Let's say you need to have this templates and catalogs. Let's say you could able to replicate these templates for multiple clients by making minimum changes. That's how the pipelines has to be. So then comes model training, tuning, and drift management. So many MLOps solution offers this automation, what we really need. See, as a data engineer, as a data scientist, you don't want to manually run your code again and again in order to produce new version of your ML model. We need automation, definitely. You need an automated data preparation, model training, model deployment. Everything should be automated. Does your pipeline offers that, right? That's a question. Then comes pipeline management. See, as part of building pipelines, there are many different stakeholders. There is a data engineer, there is a data scientist, there is an ML engineer. How do I notify once each and every execution happens successfully? Let's say if there is something going wrong on a data engineering, we need to have our pipeline to be supported to intimate that particular person in order to trigger updates, in order to send the email reports for a specific person saying that data engineer, your job has been failed. Data scientist, your job has been succeeded, right? Some notifications like that. So they will be aware about what's happening in their pipelines. So then comes a final collaboration and communication capability, because it's all about collaboration and communication. If a pipeline doesn't have, let's say, a process for you to document your commands, your questions, right? It's really not going to be a good pipeline. So you need to have a kind of a tools where you can able to document your commands. Let's say, what if you can able to integrate a Slack application into your pipeline? What if you could able to integrate a project management tools like Jira into your application, right? So that's what exactly we are looking forward. Perfect, that's good. Now let's talk about the tools, right? Let's talk about what does the cloud offers. Let's say we are talking about AWS, Azure, GCP. Why am I talking about only these three cloud platforms? This is why. Okay, we know that when it comes to the cloud platforms, AWS occupies almost 34% of the market, and then comes Azure, and then comes GCP. A quick conclusion, most of the ML workloads today in the world happens on these three cloud platforms. Mastering MLOps tools on this cloud platform, so definitely you become a master, and you could able to, it opens a lot of doors for you in a different organizations. So in this particular course, in our MLOps specialization program, we do cover AWS, Azure, GCP. MLOps tools, DevOps tools on top of it. Not just that, right? Let's say, even though, okay, that's good. Okay, perfect. I'm going to learn AWS, Azure, GCP. You might be happy. But an organization keeps on looking for more knowledge from you. That's not enough. So what happens? The reason is, an organization who is spending a lot of money on AWS, Azure, or GCP, like this cloud platforms. See, believe me on this, just think about one thing. So every organization at some point, they want to cut down their operational costs, isn't it? That's what every organization wants to do. That's where they will be looking for using open source tools. I want to use an open source tool because it's free, right? So this is where we do also cover a lot of open source tools as part of our program. That's perfect. Let's have a quick glance on what are the tools that we're going to consider in our program. Let's get started. Here we go. A Git-based tools, right? As I'm talking about the importance of versioning your code, we're going to talk about the various different tools in our specialization program. By building hands-on projects, it's not going to be like a webinar or seminar where you're going to come and listen. You're going to build a project along with me, because I will be a trainer of that. So we will be teaching a Git. So like how it works, how to use Git. It's the same exact process. If you learn Git, you could able to use various different tools in other cloud platforms. You might use AWS Code Commit, something on GCP, something on Azure, like Azure repos. Then comes understanding CI/CD. I'm talking about a continuous integration and continuous deployment. So when it comes to CI/CD, what I'm talking about, let's say in the perspective of a software, it's all about delivering a new software version. It's all about software development lifecycle. For example, let's say a developer committed a new changes. A developer made a new version of a software. Then there is a trigger build. It automatically starts building this application. Let's say building an application, basically, let's say you have a software. Let's say you want to build it as a jar file. And let's say once your build process is done, as I mentioned, let's say we send a notification saying that, okay, build process is completed. And then we do a lot of testings. Let's say we do test our software. Similarly, we do test our ML models before we deploy it to the production or maybe to the dev environment. So once your test has been cleared, we send a notification, then finally we deliver the build to our environment. Let's say we want to deploy it to the, let's say, dev environment or production environment. So to provide a very simple example, let's consider this a screenshot what I have pasted here. Let's consider that as of right now, let's say we are building, there is a web application, for example. Let's consider an e-commerce website where there is a button which is in a green color. Let's say as of right now, the production is being served with a green color pay now button, but our customers didn't like that green color pay now button. So now, based on their customer request, here we go, our developer made a changes to their code. He changed a button from green to red. And let's say he committed his code to a code pipeline. A code pipeline is a pipeline that is built for a DevOps lifecycle. And let's say he submitted his code to GitHub, and let's say he has a tool called Code Pipeline on top of AWS, where it started building its application and it produced an artifacts. And finally, we take these artifacts and we deploy it on a web server. And again, as I mentioned, we have two different environments here. We don't want to directly deploy to a production. We deploy to the dev environment first, and we ensure that the button has changed from green to red. Perfect, that's good. It has changed to green to red. And then we finally approve our application to be deployed to the production ready environment also. And finally, our production button will be also changing it to red color. So this is the same kind of a workflow we do follow when it comes to MLOps pipeline. Same process. Let's say we have a code repository. So here our data engineer, or maybe let's consider our data scientist, will be submitting a new code. They will be updating a new code. So then comes the first step, a feature engineering step, and then comes model training step. Then comes model evaluation step. We evaluate our model, we produce, let's say, metrics. And then comes this condition gate. I'm talking about the quality gate, what I taught. So in this quality gate, I check. Let's say, for example, if my MSc score, for example, let's consider that I'm working on a regression-based model. For example, let's say I'm going to check if my MSc score is less than or equal to 7. I want it to register my ML model to model registry. Otherwise, I don't want this model to be registered under a model registry. So this is how I use my quality gate, otherwise a condition gate, to register my ML model to model registry. That's perfect. Let's say I have a best version of an ML model in my model registry. Then I use a code pipelines, I mean, basically a CI/CD pipelines to build. Let's say I have my ML model as a pickle file. Let's say I build my Docker image, and let's say I want to deploy it on a Docker service. Let's say on a model hosting service. Similar to what I showed in DevOps, let's say I have two different environments. First, I will deploy to dev environment. Then I, as a data scientist, as a data engineer, or whoever in your team, I manually come and check the environment. I ensure that it's producing a quality results. If you're really satisfied, then only finally we'll be deploying that to a production ready environment. So what are those different kind of CI/CD tools that are available in the market? What do I use? So when it comes to AWS, we can use tools like AWS Code Pipelines. Along with AWS Code Pipelines, we do use tools like AWS Code Build, Code Deploy, or AWS Code Commit. So when it comes to GCP, we use a GCP-based cloud build services, cloud source repository services, or maybe Cloud Run, or maybe Cloud Deploy. When it comes to Azure, we have tools like Azure Pipelines, Azure Repos, Azure Boards, and Azure Artifacts that we're going to learn with hands-on project. Okay, that's good. What if I want to use open source tools? Let's say, for example, I want to Dockerize my ML model. Let's say I want to deploy it in a Docker service. Let's say I want to deploy it in a Kubernetes service, like an orchestration service. Otherwise, let's say I want to deploy my ML model on a cloud-based Kubernetes service. For example, something on AWS, EKS. EKS stands for Elastic Kubernetes Service. Yes, we do cover that. Then comes model management tools. Okay, Sharath, in my organization, they are looking for open source tools, which is very famous. Okay, that's good. We do cover tools like MLflow, a very famous tool for model experimentation and for model registry. That's perfect. So what kind of a tool that is available for versioning your ML data? So here we go. We do cover DVC, which stands for Data Version Control Tool, which is widely used in various different organizations to version your data. Otherwise, let's say you can also use Git large files, a tool for versioning your data again, which is Git based. Then comes a feature store. As I'm mentioning, a feature store, which is nothing but a schema repository. So there are different kind of tools that we're going to talk in this particular program. So talking about SageMaker feature store, Vertex AI feature store on top of GCP, Databricks feature store, Our very famous feature store called Feast, which is open source, are talking about other feature stores like Tecton or HubSpot actually. That's good. So what are the cloud ML tools that we're going to use in order to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline? We're going to use Amazon SageMaker, where you're going to learn how to build MLOps pipeline with me. We're going to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline on top of Vertex AI. We're going to learn how to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline on top of Azure Machine Learning Studio. We're going to learn MLOps version 2 architecture, which is latestly available from Amazon SageMaker, on Azure Machine Learning. Okay, as I mentioned, Sharad, again, I don't want to use cloud. In my organization, they want to use open source pipeline building tool. Here we go, a Kubeflow. We do cover Kubeflow in order to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline. Perfect. What about model monitoring, Sharad? Here we go. So we do cover various different SDKs, which is supported by AWS or Azure or GCP in order to monitor the model. Along with that, we do also teach you how to use open source model monitoring tools like Evidently AI. Otherwise, so what are the commercial platforms that are available in the market? Let's say in my organization, okay, they want to understand how to use Azure, Domino Data Labs, Volahai, maybe Neptune.ai. Otherwise, how to use tools like weights and biases in order to, let's say, build my end-to-end MLOps pipeline. Here we go. We do cover that. Then comes finally a post-deployment challenges. Perfect. Now, let's say I have deployed my ML model. What happens next? What are the post-deployment challenges? What are the post-deployment challenges related to software engineers? What are the post-deployment challenges related to ML related? Otherwise, let's say, what are the challenges related to, let's say, you want to deploy your ML models on edge devices, like IoT devices, for example, right? Yeah, so this is it. And now it's finally a time to have a live demo that I built. So what if I show you collaborative of everything that I built? What if I show you a live demo? Here we go. I have already built an end-to-end MLOps pipeline on top of Amazon SageMaker Studio, which I'm going to provide a demo. So once you sign up for a program, you will learn how to build this end-to-end MLOps pipeline, not on just AWS, on Azure, GCP, and AWS, and again open source tools. Okay, here we go. I hope you guys, everyone could able to see my screen. The screen that you're seeing right now, it's actually a screen from SageMaker Studio, actually. Let's get started. So the pipeline that I built, the name of a pipeline is MLOps demo. So here is my actual project. Here is my actual pipeline. Okay. So there are two repositories. As I mentioned, the source version control tool comes in the picture. So there are two repositories that I used. So one is for model building, and I have another repository for model deployment. So in this particular repository, this is where our data scientists or data engineers or anyone who is responsible, they will be submitting a code here. So then comes our actual pipeline. So here comes our actual pipeline. My name of a pipeline is MLOps demo. If I go inside that particular pipeline, you can see that my pipeline has executed only once. What do you mean by only once? Let's say if my pipeline executed twice, thrice, or n number of times, it's going to produce a new ML model again and again. That's what we call it as a continuous training. So let's consider we have one pipeline. Let's get inside that. Here we go. This is my actual pipeline. You've been able to see this graph, right? So these are the various different blocks that I have as part of a model, in the entire model building process. The first step of my pipeline is processing data, right? So here we call it as processing abalone data. That's a use case. I named it as processing abalone data. If I click on that particular block, you'll be able to understand what's really happening over there. So ultimately, the input for data pre-processing, it would be what? It would be, okay, I want to input my data. I need to provide a machine in order to pre-process my data. So what we do ultimately as part of a data pre-processing, what would be the final output? The ultimate output for data pre-processing is, I want to split my data to test, validation, and training data set. That's what exactly you would be able to see. I have already splitted my data into testing data, validation data, and training data. I have stored it on some kind of a storage platform on top of AWS. We call it as Amazon S3. We store all this data in Amazon S3. Perfect. That's good, right? We have a data that is needed for training, validation, and testing. And the next block that you could able to see, it's actually my model training block. So what we do in a model training block, we pick an algorithm, we start training a data that I prepared in a previous step. So what would be an expected output? The expected output would be a ML model. So when it comes to Amazon SageMaker, it produces an ML model as a tar file. You could able to see in my screen. This is my ML model, ML model.tar.gz. And again, this ML model is stored in my S3 bucket, which is a storage platform. And again, here you could able to see the metrics on my training data and validation data. The metrics that I calculate is an RMSE score, the root mean square error value on my both training and validation. Perfect, right? So now I have my ML model trained, stored in a storage platform. So now what is next? We need to evaluate your ML model. So in evaluation, basically I call my ML model, I calculate a metrics out of it. Let's say I calculate my MSE score. Let's say I calculate my standard deviation, or maybe any kind of a metrics that you want. So I again create a JSON file in this example. I store this JSON file in my S3 bucket. So what is this JSON file? This JSON file have a metrics that I can refer later. So now finally comes something called check MSE abalone evaluation. This is what I'm talking about, a quality gate. A quality gate actually checks, as I mentioned already in the slide, it basically checks if my MSE score, in case if my MSE score is less than, if it is less than or equal to 7, it goes and registers my ML model to model registry. In case if it is true, you can see the output for check MSE abalone is true. That means if it is actually less than or equal to 7, it registers my ML model to model registry. You could able to check my MSE score here, which is actually 4.69. Do you think it is actually less than or equal to 7? 100%, right? Yes, it is less than or equal to 7. It registered my model to model registry. And as part of end-to-end traceability, so Sharath, you can ask me, Sharath, where did you track all these metrics? You mentioned end-to-end traceability. You could able to see that for each and every block, there are logs I could able to check, which is generated on top of CloudWatch. I could able to track what's happening in end to end. Perfect, that's good. So now what we will do, let's go to a model registry where our models are versioned. So before that, here is an option for experiments. So this is where we conduct various different experiments. So model training experiments, hyperparameter tuning experiments. So this is where all your hyperparameter tuning experiments will be listed. So there are 3 experiments that you could able to see here. So the one experiment is for SageMaker processing job, I mean data pre-processing. One job is for model training, one experiment is for model evaluation. So there are 3 experiments that we might conduct here. Okay, that's good. Let's go to model groups. Finally, so model groups are nothing but a model registry, what I mentioned. Let's say here I have a model group. I go to my model group. Here we go. Here is the first version of our ML model that I produced. Its version. You can see a version number over here that says 1. And this model is not yet deployed to dev or maybe production environment that I'm talking about. So I need to deploy it right now. And you can see the stage is none, the status is pending. If I double click and if I go to a new page, and here we have an option to deploy this ML model to development environment, right? Let's say here my ML model is actually waiting for my approval. That's what I'm talking about. I don't want to directly deploy my ML model to dev or production. I want to manually approve that to deploy. So here, in order to deploy my ML model to dev, I simply hit on this update status button, and where I change the status from pending to approve. And let's say if you didn't like the quality or maybe the metrics out of it, you can also reject it. So now I'm going to approve it. I'm going to simply type a command if I need, and I simply say update status. That's it pretty much. So here in this particular step, I'm actually approving my ML model to be deployed to dev environment. I haven't showed you how do I deploy my ML model to production environment yet. I'm going to show you how to deploy my ML model to production environment in few seconds actually. Okay. So now what's really happening? You can able to see what just happened in my screen. The status got been updated as of right now. You can see that it's saying that status update to approve. I mean, it's now getting deployed to dev environment. So it's going to take some time to be deployed to dev environment. How do I track it? So this is where I'm deploying it to my real-time endpoint. If I go to endpoints, here I could able to grab a real-time HTTPS REST API which I can provide it to our developers to build into, to build in application, the front end Android application, for example. So it's going to take few minutes to deploy. So in the meantime, let's go and check it out. What does a job opportunities for someone who has MLOps skills on their resume would look like? Let's have a discussion on that. Meantime, let me just have some water. Perfect. Let's get started. So here's the data where we done a lot of research and we got this data from various different environments. Okay, perfect. Before we're talking about the data, who should be really part of MLOps? Who should be really learning MLOps? Okay, here is the clarity. Anyone who is part of building ML projects, right? You might be a data scientist, you might be a data engineer or a data analyst who is part of ML projects. You might be a research or maybe applied scientist. You might be an ML engineer. You might be a DevOps engineer who is trying to get into ML engineering jobs, aspiring MLOps professionals and enthusiasts, machine learning professionals who want to know how to deploy their ML models to production, how to deploy, what kind of environment, Dockerizing, Kubernetes environment, real-time endpoint, serverless, right? And anyone who want to learn Dockers, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, DVC, Freeze, MLflow, such kind of tools. Are any individual interested in data and AI industry is someone who has to learn MLOps actually. Saying that, here is the actual salary ranges for professionals who has MLOps skills on their resume. And this particular data is actually representing an average salary. Okay, you might be having a 6 years of experience, you might be having a 15 years of experience, you will be coming an above average. I'm telling what is an average salary, who has at least 2 to 3 years of experience. So here is a data that we grabbed from sixfigure.com. You can just cross verify if you want. An average salary for someone who has MLOps skills on their resume in India, it starts from 23.1 lakhs. So this data is actually verified on 12 profiles of MNCs in India. And again, in case if you're from US, the global standard is 94.5K dollars. That's really a big number, right? When it comes to US. And let's say, based on your experience, your salary ranges might differ. So 33% lies on 10 to 20 lakhs. 42% lies between 20 to 30 lakhs. 25% lies between 30 to 40 lakhs. Just imagine based on your experience. That's the data. And there is no real doubt about the vacancies and maybe the trending job trends today in the world, right? So the actual trend started picking up somewhere around 2009, and the trend keeps on trending till 2003. And a lot of people ask this question, Sharon, okay, so what about this recession? What's happening in the US? What's happening in India? It's pretty much simple answer what I have for this. So if you think recession is really hurting your job, in another side, what you need to see today, everywhere people talk about AI. Every CEO talks about AI, whether he is from, let's say, AI industry or not, right? A lot of AI tools coming out of a market. So where are those people? Who are those people who are actually building that AI? So my question is pretty much simple. So the AI is the future, and AI is going to rule the world. There's no doubt about it. My expectation is until a Terminator, it's going to take our world completely. Till that, there's a job for AI people. Yeah, that might be a pretty much funny answer, but that's a reality. Okay, saying that, let's quickly go and check what happened for our ML model deployment. Before that, let's talk about one more slide, the understanding the speed of transformation. Obviously, a good example that I would like to always provide to my participants, just consider the amount of speed the transformation is always happening. Just consider that between 2009 and 2019, just imagine, have you ever wondered that? So have you ever seen that maybe a movie maker, maybe a news reporter who is traveling in a chopper or something like this, shooting for a particular news report, right? Just imagine that this particular problem, this particular industry completely been replaced with drones just in 10 years, right? So that is the transformation. That's the speed what we are looking forward in when it comes to AI industry. Okay, so saying that, let's go back. Here we go. Okay, you can see that now I am in the endpoint section actually. Okay, you can able to see that right now I'm in the endpoint section. You can see that my ML model has been successfully deployed to my dev environment actually. That's perfect. Let's go inside. So this is my dev ML model which has been deployed. Let's say I'm going inside my endpoint details. Okay, so if I go to my AWS settings, this is the HTTPS REST API which I'm talking about. So this is the HTTPS REST API which will be used by your developer in order to build end application, maybe a front-end Android application, for example. So what if I show you how to generate inferences from this ML model that I deployed? All I need to do, I will copy this endpoint name. I will go to my Jupyter notebooks that I have here. Okay, so make sure, folks, there are a lot of exciting things comes in next few 30 minutes. So don't leave this particular meeting, otherwise you're going to lose everything. You can download a free ebooks and more demo that you will be able to enjoy, and more questions that you can able to answer. Only if you stay till end of the session. Okay, it's going to be more fun. Here we go. Let me just quickly open my Jupyter notebooks so I can able to generate predictions for you. Okay. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So here is my Jupyter notebook, and let me just quickly open a script which I can able to use in order to generate inferences from my ML model that I have deployed to, let's say, a production area. I mean, actually, dev environment, not production. Okay, here is a script that I'm going to use in order to generate inferences. All I'm going to do, I'm going to simply replace my endpoint name over here, and I'm going to simply save it. So as part of this particular use case, what I'm trying to do, I have trained an abalone ML model. And abalone is basically a sea snail. Basically, it's a seafood. The ultimate aim of this ML model in order to predict an age of an abalone. So now, if I start running this particular script, you could able to see that it will start making a predictions. I mean, it says that the age of an abalone is 8.25. So this is how I could able to start generating an inferences. Okay, perfect. So still, I have to show you how to deploy my ML model to my production environment. So I'm going to show you in the next few minutes. Before that, let's talk about our actual program right now. Okay, so the long time wait, now it comes to the light. Okay, so now let's talk about our program MLOps specialization course, which is going to start from the 1st of July. Okay, not so long, starting from 1st of July. So this is a program which is going to help you to become a specialist on top of MLOps. Okay, so MLOps specialization program, as I mentioned, we call it as a 4-pillar program. So what do you mean by 4-pillar? That means we do cover MLOps on top of AWS, we do cover MLOps on top of Azure, GCP, and not just that, open source tools, as I mentioned. So what is the workflow of this particular program? Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so we will be having a live sessions starting from 1st of July. I mean, it's a 7 weekends program, otherwise it's a 60 hours program. Every Saturday, Sunday, every weekend, every Saturday, Sunday, around 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. IST, in case if you're from India. Otherwise, if you're from EST time zone, 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Otherwise, if you're from CET time zone, it's going to start from 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Every weekend, we're going to have a 4 hours, a live hands-on session. That means we're going to build live project along with me. So on every Monday, you will be receiving an access to recordings of our live session. And every Tuesday and Wednesday, we do something called optional debugging sessions. What do you mean by this debugging sessions? Because 85% of our live sessions includes hands-on labs, hands-on projects. See what happens, few times you might face some difficulties, you might have some errors that you couldn't resolve it in our live sessions. So we do conduct one-on-one debugging sessions where you can able to join, where I'm going to help you to resolve that questions. Otherwise, consider that you want to discuss something else into your career, something else that you want to apply for a new job, so you can have the discussions over here. So MLOps specialization program has key features. It's a 60 hours program where you're going to have a 50 plus live hands-on labs and 5 plus real-time projects and one-on-one debugging session where we cover AWS, Azure, GCP, and open source tools. Perfect, isn't it? So now, in a few minutes, we're going to have a complete discussion on a curriculum that we're going to cover. Okay. In the meantime, let's have a discussion about what is the pricing structure. Okay, let's have a discussion about what is the pricing structure for this particular program. Okay, here we go. So here we have three different price plans. Okay, not just one, three different price plans. I mean, so this is designed in such a way in order to grab what exactly you need in this particular program. Okay, we have an actual program for this particular program. We have something called advanced plan, which starts from 39,999. Okay, so we call it as advanced plus. So then we have our advanced plan, which starts from 34,999. Then we have something called basic plan, which starts from 32,999. Okay, what is this price plan? What is this basic or advanced or maybe advanced plus? Let me just provide you a clarity. So irrespective of whatever the plan that you take, either you take basic or advanced or maybe advanced plus, doesn't matter at all. Actually, let's say as part of a learning what I'm talking about, let's say if you want to attend live sessions, access to recordings, access to debugging sessions, access to free resource materials, it's common for all the plans. There is no exception. But if you take an advanced or maybe advanced plus, usually working professionals, they take either advanced or maybe advanced plus, you get some additional premium features. Let me tell you what, it's going to be really interesting. The first thing is resume preparation. That is something that we offer it for free. Then comes 6 months of technical job support. Let's consider that after completing a program, let's say you're working in an organization. So where they are asking you to build some sample pipelines. Here we go. We could able to provide you documentation, a support, a consulting for you to solve that. Otherwise, let me tell you how our existing participants, they do use job support. We have people ranging from 2 years of experience to 15 years of experience, for example, who join our program. They are applying for lead roles, MLOps architect, MLOps specialist, MLOps solution architect, something like this. So we do support these people in order to help them streamlining their interview process, provide a roadmap, having a discussion on job roles and such things. And then comes a very important feature, we call it as bonus reattendance option. So what happens, as I mentioned, 95% of the people who take these programs are working professionals. See what happens, it's a 7-weekend program. Sometimes what happens, professionals, they miss a 15 to 20% of live sessions and they ask, okay, Sharad, I missed some live sessions. Can I retake this program again? So that is where this bonus reattendance opportunity comes into the picture. I mean, by signing up once, you get 2 chances to take this program. Consider that, okay, you completed our current batch, and even after completing our current batch, you can retake this program once again in August batch. Let's say, I mean, you can take this program twice. So then comes our advanced plus plan, same features, you get resume preparation, but instead of 6 months of job support, you get 1 year of job support. And again, bonus reattendance opportunity also comes with that. And then comes an additional feature called instant access. What do you mean by instant access? Is nothing but, let's say, for example, you're going to sign up today. You say that, okay, I'm going to wait for next 25 days to actual live session. See what happens here. We do provide, as part of instant access, we do provide a complete access to our previous batch recordings. We just ended with our previous batch last weekend. You're going to get the complete access to their recordings, not just recordings, a support till you complete our live sessions. So you can take the recordings whenever you get time, and once 1st July comes into the picture, you can join our live sessions again. That's the features. Let's say if you want to look for a prices in USD, our advanced plan starts from just $599, and our advanced plan starts with $499, and our basic plan just starts with $449. Okay, isn't it? And definitely there won't be, I mean, there won't be a fun without a surprise, right? So in order to let's say respect your time that you have spent in our demo session for the next, I mean, for the 2 hours, here is a campaign offer that we are offering till 13th of June. This is a campaign offer is only for people who have taken this demo session, or people who have heard about this the offer in this particular demo session. So this is called a free upgradation offer, otherwise a campaign offer, till 13th of June, only for the first 10 registrations. What do you mean by this? What is this campaign offer? I'm really excited to know, right? Let me just tell you what. So let's say here we have three different plans, right? So let's say you might be interested in basic plan, you might be interested in advanced plan, or you might be seriously interested in getting started with advanced plus, right? What is this campaign offer? Pretty much simple. Here is the surprise. All you need to do, let's say if you're interested in, let's consider that you are interested in advanced plan. Okay, let's consider that advanced plan. Let's say you're interested to get this bonus reattendance opportunity and all. All you need to do, you don't want to register for advanced plan at all. You don't want to register for advanced plan. All you need to do, just register for a basic plan, which is costing just 32,999, right? So basic plan which is costing 32,999, but we will be upgrading you to advanced plan completely for free. That means by paying for basic, you get advanced plan completely for free. That is for first time registrations, but please note registrations has been started already 7 days ago. And this is going to end till 13th of June. Automatically, people who register for our basic plan, they get advanced plan. Similarly, people who register for advanced plan, they get advanced plus completely for free. 1 year of job support, bonus related this opportunity, and in next 24 hours, you get the complete access to the recordings of our previous batch. You can get started today with this program itself. Okay, this is it. Don't leave this offer. This is for just 10 people until 13th of June. And why do you think Citron Technologies is the best people to take this particular program? So we've been supported by Government of India, incubated in PhD step, funded by Nidhi EIR program, and we have awarded in international stages like the Best Startup Award in 2018, and represent ourselves in many international stages. And this is not our first batch, okay? So this is our almost a fourth batch that we're conducting in this particular year, and you could able to check our feedbacks from our students who have taken our previous programs. You will be receiving all these feedbacks in a PDF that we're going to discuss. I mean, the curriculum that we're going to discuss, you can able to check the insights from our previous students. How do they feel about our program? Hands-on, the delivery of a program, hands-on labs, it may be the questions, helping the candidates whenever you want, all this stuff. Again, so now it's time to have a quick discussion on the curriculum that we're going to cover. Okay, so still we have an half an hour for this program to end. Okay, don't leave this session. So you can able to download the free ebooks that I'm going to provide, and again you can ask a lot of questions. Okay, so I'm going to share this particular PDF, the registration links, everything in a few more minutes. Okay, here is a PDF. Let's have a quick discussion on our curriculum. Okay, there are totally 13 modules. There are 13 modules in this particular program. The first module is MLOps introduction. So this is where we're going to dive deep into the complete basic concepts of MLOps, understanding the high-level motivation of MLOps, trying to understand the machine learning lifecycle, and here we are talking about MLOps only, right? What is this DevOps? What is this AI ops? What is this model ops? What is this Git ops? Let's have a discussion, right? And understanding the CI/CD production case study. We're going to talk about how various different organizations has implemented a CI/CD pipelines for their production. So then comes module number 2, introduction to ML and MLOps stages. So this is where we're going to talk about the detailed MLOps stages. What is versioning? What are the different kind of versionings we do in MLOps? What are the different kind of testings we do? What are the different kind of automations? I mean the CI/CD stuff that we do. Reproducibility, deployment, and monitoring of your ML models. Then comes MLOps architectures. This is where we're going to discuss open source tools, and we're going to talk about the cloud native tools. We're going to talk about open source tools like Kubeflow, and we have included Apache Airflow, which is actually a new tool in this particular batch. This tool is not available for previous batch, which is being updated for our current batch. And talking about other tools like MLflow, Metaflow, Kedros, ZenML, MLrun, CML, and more. And talking about cloud native tools, talking about AWS, GCP, and Azure, what those cloud platforms offers in terms of MLOps pipeline building process. Then comes module number 3, Git. This is where we're going to teach you how to use Git, how to version your code by doing live hands-on projects. Then comes CI/CD tools, and this is where we're going to talk about a DevOps on top of AWS, DevOps on top of GCP, DevOps on top of Azure. we're going to build live projects on top of those cloud platforms to understand DevOps, because that's the first step in order to get started with the MLOps actually. So the projects will be built on all the cloud platforms. And then comes module number 5, Dockers and Kubernetes, obviously. So this is where we're going to get started from basic of Dockers and Kubernetes, where you're going to learn how to containerize your ML model and how to deploy your ML model on a Docker service, and followed by that, how to orchestrate your ML model. I mean, how to deploy your ML model on a Kubernetes framework will be taught to you by building a live hands-on project. So then comes module number 6, Kubernetes deployment strategy. This is where we're going to discuss how to deploy your ML model on a cloud-based orchestration service. I mean, on top of Amazon EKS, how to deploy your ML model on the Elastic Kubernetes service on AWS. Then comes module number 7, introduction to model management tools. So this is where we're going to talk about tools for data versioning, code versioning, experiment tracking, model registries, model monitoring. So this is where we're going to talk about MLflow, a very famous tool for model experimentation and model registry, where we're going to learn how to deploy ML stack and how to build, try and deploy your ML models through MLflow. And here we're going to talk about DVC, which is actually a data version control tool in order to version your data. Then comes Git large files. Then comes module number 8, which is a feature store, right? A feature store, as I mentioned, a schema repository for you to store your features. We're going to talk about various different feature stores that is available in the market, like Amazon SageMaker feature store, Git CI feature store, Databricks, and Feast. Especially in this module, we're going to use Feast in order to deploy open source feature store, where we're going to learn something called what is this online feature store, what is this offline feature store, and more. Then comes Cloud ML Servers N101. In this particular module, we're going to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline on top of AWS, SageMaker, and Vertex AI, and on Azure MLOps, end-to-end MLOps version 2 architecture. So you don't believe, we do spend at least 1 weekend completely on a cloud platforms itself. You don't believe it. If we get started with a project on a Saturday, we end it on a Monday. Sorry, not on Monday, on Sunday. I mean, usually we spend 8 hours. There are projects like that, such huge scale that we're going to build. Then comes module number 10, which is a Kubeflow, right? So we're going to use this open source Kubeflow architecture deployed on a cloud platform to build open source ML pipelines. Then comes module number 11, introduction to model monitoring. We have a separate module where we're going to talk about model monitoring on top of AWS, Azure, GCP, and swing any one of a cloud platform, let's say building a hands-on project. Then comes introduction to AutoML use, the module number 12, because we don't just cover AWS or Azure, GCP or open source tools, we do also cover commercial platforms here, like Olahai, Neptune.ai, Iswazi. At least a demo would be provided on any one of the platforms. Then comes the final module number 3, the post-deployment challenges. This is where we're going to talk about what happens after deployment. What are the challenges related to software engineering? What are the challenges related to ML engineering? How do we use other open source tools like Evidently AI to build into, model monitoring stuff, how to monitor your ML model in production, right? So this is about our curriculum, and these are the skills that you're going to master. DevOps, Git, GitHub, AWS, code commit, code pipelines, GCP based DevOps tools, Azure based tools, open source tools like Kubernetes, Amazon EKS, MLOps, DevOps. So these are the tools that you're going to master, right? There's a lot of tools that we're going to learn, lot of tools, and these are the clouds that we're going to learn, right? Yeah, you can also check the pricing details we have attached in this particular PDF, and if you further scroll down, you can also check the testimonials from our previous batch students also. Okay, perfect. So still we have 20 minutes. I'm quickly going to show you how to deploy your ML model on production. Then I'm going to open a session for Q&A to get started. So before I deploy my ML model to production, I'm quickly going to share a link in a chat window for everything that I mentioned. So I'm going to share these 4 links. The first link is for actually registration for actual course, and second link is for actually downloading a curriculum, the PDF that I showed. The third link is actually downloading a free ebooks. And finally, I have a contact information. So let's say if you copy this and paste it in your web browser, so you will be redirected to a screen. I mean, you will be redirected to a registration platform, which will look like this. Okay, so it will be hosted on a platform called Townsware, which is actually a registration platform. So once you go to this particular registration platform, so here you can able to find the perfect information. I mean, the same information that we discussed, a poster, and if you further hit read more, you could able to check all the curriculum what we discussed over here, complete informations, and you can also further scroll down. You can also check our students' feedbacks over here. Okay, and you can also hit book now button where you'll be redirected to a ticket platform and where you can able to select a ticket. Let's say if you are from India, you can select basic for Indian participants or advanced for Indian participants, advanced plus for Indian participants. Or if you're joining outside India, you can able to select basic for international, advanced for international, advanced plus for international. Okay, so let me just quickly share the links in a chat window. You can just click and you can start registering. Okay, so I have shared the links in the chat window. Perfect. Now let's go to AWS and I will show you how to deploy our ML models on a production server. If I want to deploy my ML models on a production, I need to use another tool, which is actually a CI/CD pipeline, which is I will search for code pipelines. So the code pipeline, which is actually a CI/CD tool that I used in order to build this project, which I will go to CI/CD tool. Perfect. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, you can see that I have one pipeline in progress, which is actually waiting for me. Okay, I will just simply go to that particular pipeline. Here we go. And you can see that stages, the different stages, you can see here, right? I have a source stage where is actually my code is coming from. Here is my build stage where actually ML model is being built. And here is the final deployment step. Let's say it is actually waiting for my approval. Here, in order to approve this ML model to be deployed to production, all I do, I will simply hit review. And here is my same window that I showed you previously. Here you can put your commands if you need, and I will simply say approve. So once I say approve, what happens? It goes and deploys to a production machine. Okay, how do I track it? How do I track it? All you need to do, go back to your studio. I mean, if I go back to my SageMaker studio, there is my studio. I just looks like I closed my studio. That's bad. Okay, here is my studio. Perfect. Yeah, if I go to my studio, if I go to endpoints itself, if I refresh, I mean, it's going to take, okay, here you can see in a few minutes itself, you can see that it says MLOps demo -prod. It says that it is getting deployed to production. In the same process, once it's get deployed, I can take an endpoint, I can start making a predictions. So this is about it. It's going to take a few minutes to deploy. Now the session is officially open for Q&A. What I will do, you can try to unmute your mic. You can talk to me. Otherwise, you can also mention your questions in the chat window. So we can start talking now. Perfect. Let's get started. Yep.
Hi, I'm Soumya. So I wanted to know,
One request, Soumya, before we get started. Obviously, people has to know. So you can just mention who you are. I mean, are you a student? If you're a working professional, what kind of a work you do? So then we can have a conversation. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, I'm a data scientist. I work for HP.
Perfect.
So yeah, I want to know, like, what type of situations are there? So what I understand is Docker is some sort of configuration file, right? Or
I
am I
mean,
wrong on
Docker
this?
is not a configuration file. So Docker is pretty much, let's say, see why you need Dockers. Let's say you're a software engineer. Let's say you're building a software. The issue with the software is, let's say in your environment, in your PC, the software might work exactly fine as you expected. But let's say you're trying to replicate the same software in multiple other PCs. It don't work exactly as it is working on your PC. It might have a lot of problems with dependencies, the environment. That's why we use Dockers in order to pack our software as a Docker image, and you use this Docker image to run it anywhere you want. So it exactly works how it is working on your PC. So Dockerizing, it's all about packing the software, shipping it anywhere, and it works exactly like how you expected, pretty much.
But then why can't we just create a virtual environment, and in that virtual environment we can install a library? Why do we need a Docker then if it's just about
So let's
having
say, yeah,
software?
perfect, good question. So even if it is a virtual environment, it is like a virtual PC what you're talking about. Again, the same exact problem. A virtual PC is an exact PC what you have in your virtual PC, and your PC is exactly same. So the problem with, let's say for example, we run our ML models inside a Docker service. So where the same Docker service might be running on others PC, the environment might not change over here. So everything runs inside a Docker image itself. So that's the ultimate game. So because there's no difference if it is your own virtual PC or if your own PC, the problem is exactly same. So consider
So
that you might be running a different version of a software. I might be running a different version of a software. And let's say I might be having some missing packages. You might be having all the packages, right? Even if you're running on a virtual machine, okay, it says that, okay, this software is not supported, missing dependencies, this software is not supported, you need to upgrade that. That's the problem, basically. Yeah,
okay,
perfect. Is
okay.
there any other questions?
Yeah, one more thing. A serialized file is a file which is saved in our system. What is a serialized file?
Okay, so when it comes to serialization files, basically, let's say whenever we train our ML model, once you have an ML model, for an ML model, basically we say that how it's going to get an input, how it's going to get an output, and finally we store all this metadata, and finally we make it a model, right? So model which will have a serialization file where it's a configuration, we say that how we're going to get an input, how we're going to get an output. Pretty much simple serialization file, otherwise we can say our model artifacts with our ML model.
Okay, okay. By model artifacts, you mean apart from model, if there are any CSVs or images which are created or any other plots which are created, all of that you called a model artifact, and that can also be called the serialized file.
Serialized files. Specifically, it's all about, let's say, how your model is going to receive an input. Okay, perfect. Okay, good. So I'm going to take others questions also. I will maybe if you have questions, you can just come again after a few minutes. So I just need to give a prior to others. So, okay, so I will answer others' questions. We have Praveen here. It's saying I'm a solution architect. I'm not good at coding. Do we need to learn coding without coding? Can we learn MLOps? Okay, that's a good question. So let's say, for example, we need to decide exactly. So where exactly going to be part of this ML pipelines? So what I'm trying to say, you might be a data engineer, you might be a data scientist, or you want to work as an ML engineer. So each and every stakeholders here, they need definitely different skills. If you say that I want to become a data scientist, I don't have a programming knowledge, it won't work. You need to be really expert. I mean, you need to have expertise in Python. You need to have an in-depth knowledge on mathematics, statistics, probability, and algorithm. The same thing applies for data engineers also. But let's say when it comes to, if I'm saying I'm an ML engineer, do I need to have the same expertise like data scientist or let's say data engineer? Maybe not, right? As an ML engineer, you might not build ML models because it is built by data scientists. But definitely you need to have some basic understanding of programming, because as an ML engineer, we do write a script sometime in order to test your ML model. So similarly, what DevOps people does sometimes, right? So definitely having a knowledge of programming, it works fine. But let's say when it comes to, let's say if you don't have a programming skills, let's say even if you say that I'm a DevOps engineer, is there any chances that I can get into this? Yes, ML engineering could be a good position for you. Okay, perfect. Anyone, if you want to ask a question, you can unmute your mic, you can talk to me. Please go ahead. Okay, I'm going to answer another question in the chat window. Sridhar says that can a fresher with a good knowledge of machine learning can grab a job in this field? Perfectly, yes. There's no doubt about it. So, for example, there are junior MLOps roles also. There is a rabble in the market. So, where we have seen those opportunities already in various different organizations. Yes, let's say if you have a good knowledge on machine learning after upgrading your skills on MLOps, definitely that's going to help you find your best job. So for example, pretty much simple, let's say there are data engineers and data scientists who have a good knowledge on data engineering and data science actually, right? But So there is a huge lack of MLOps skills even for existing data scientists and data engineers, which is not going to be working for them in next upcoming years, because so no more industries are looking forward for next 5 years just building an ML model. They want to quickly looking for going for production. For them, they need data engineers or data scientists or anyone who is part of a pipeline to be upgraded their skills to MLOps. Tomorrow, they will be getting started to productionizing their ML model. Yeah. So I have another question from Geeta Vijay. So what is your view on ML career considering the chat GPT, okay, has a potential to take over the most tasks it involves in the future? Okay. Okay, that's a good question. See, like chat GPT is just an AI tool. It's an AI tool. It's a final end product. If you ask me, what powers chat GPT at the back end? It's the pipelines they might have built. So what powers ChatGPT? Maybe the pipelines they have built. So they have a lot of tools. They keeps on monitoring whether how this ChatGPT is been performing. They have responsible AIs. They will have a tools in order to monitor ML model, the model that is actually powering the ChatGPT. They will be having a tool in order to understand the load. You might see that. So previously, once ChatGPT is in really buzz, ChatGPT keep on crashing. How do a team understand the ChatGPT has been crashed? They have a tools where they can monitor. So ChatGPT is an AI tool, right? If you are in an ML career, Geeta Vijay, you build tools like ChatGPT. If you are in an ML career, you are responsible for building an AI. You build tools like ChatGPT, for example. Okay, we have someone called DS, which is asking a question. What infrastructure like laptop configuration, etc., would be needed to take this training and hands-on on GCP, Azure? Yeah, that's a good question. So you don't need to have a fancy laptop with fancy configuration. No. Even if you have a basic configuration, if you have an Intel i3 with 4 GB RAM, that would be a minimum. That would be more than enough to get started. So because most amount of our workloads in our program will be on a cloud platform. So we do run our workloads on our laptop, but a minimum configuration will work. Even if you have Mac, Linux, doesn't matter. Windows doesn't matter. Okay, Ajay is asking a question. Do we need to have AWS Azure GCP free account as part of a prerequisites, or we need to create a login alternatively? Okay, that's a good question. Ajay is asking, okay, if I want to get started with this program, do we need to have an account? Yes, we would suggest, obviously we have a prerequisites that we ask you to fulfill at least a few weeks before the session. You don't have to worry. Yes, we suggest you to create a free account because every cloud platforms offer a free trial. AWS offers 1 year free trial. Azure and GCP, they provide the credits for a few months to get started. Okay, someone called Prince asking a question. Knowledge-wise, any prerequisites needed? Okay, if you are anyone who is part of ML projects building, pipeline building process, as I mentioned, let's say if you are an existing, you might be existing data scientist, data engineer, analyst, research or applied scientist. If you are an ML engineer, a DevOps engineer, aspiring MLOps professional, someone who is looking for deploying their ML models, or someone who is looking for learning Docker, Kubernetes, Azure, GCP, DVC, Feast, MLOps, some kind of a tool, or someone who has a non-interest to get started with the AI industry, right? Someone who has a basic understanding of programming, has some good knowledge on ML, data science, they can get started. We have another question from Prashant. What kind of a projects, use case will be covered? Okay, so when it comes to use case, what kind of a project that we'll be building, let me make it one more thing clear. Thanks for asking that question. So this is all about MLOps. So right, so we do teach MLOps here. I mean, we do teach a standard industrial templates. I mean, let's say you'll be learning template building process on Azure, GCP, AWS, and open source tools. That's the same principles. That's the same way how other organizations they do use if you're working for their organizations. So here the ultimate game that we're going to play to build MLOps pipelines, right? And here we don't teach you data science. We don't teach you, let's say, data engineering here. But definitely we're going to build an ML model, because without building an ML model, we cannot build this pipeline. But we don't focus on understanding the basics of data science. We don't focus on understanding the basics of data engineering. Perfect. And we have Nihal asking a question. I'm currently doing an MBA and joining as a product manager, but I have 1 year's experience in deep learning. Will learning MLOps works for the profile. That's perfect. So Nihal, let's say that's good. If you have a data science role already, I mean, if you are coming from data science background, 100% yes. So this is going to work. And again, followed by that question, Nihal, I would like to answer. Let's say if you guys are from data science or data engineering background, let's say you have a 5+ years of experience, 5 to 6 years of experience, you can also apply for a lead roles which are available in the market. We call it as MLOps engineer, MLOps lead engineer, MLOps architect, MLOps specialist. There are roles like that. Okay. So when it comes to this MLOps lead roles, they are all rounders. I mean, you need to have, so when it comes to that, they will be looking forward for the from a candidate has a good knowledge on everything. So probably you won't be the one person who will be doing data engineering, data science, or maybe model deployment, CI/CD, all those stuff. But you should have a clarity on every topics. What when it comes to MLOps lead engineer, and definitely you will be the person, someone who is managing the underlying team of building ML projects. So if you ask me, who gets to decide what tool to be used? Who gets to decide in that particular organization, I want to use MLflow, I want to use Kubeflow. So this people comes into the picture. And again, the salary pay scale for this lead roles are definitely higher comparing with, let's say, if you are an existing data engineer with MLOps skills, existing data science with MLOps skills. So we have another question from Ajay. Will big data based real-time projects will be covered? No, we don't cover big data here. But let's say this the pipelines that we will be building on AWS, Azure, and GCP, it's big data supported. I mean, let's say you might be having a streaming data that is coming where you need to do a real-time prediction. The pipelines are exactly meant for that. Followed by that, you might ask another question. Okay, so what kind of a projects that you build? I guess if it's not from Nihal or someone who asked. So the pipelines that we're going to build, it supports any kind of an ML model that you want to build. Maybe you want to work on a classical model, computer vision, NLP, deep learning based models. The pipeline supports all the use cases. So Ajay has another question. Looks like Ajay is asking a lot of questions. That's perfect. I want all of you guys to ask your questions. If you want to talk to me, please take that advantage. You can also talk to me. Okay. What about Azure, GCP, and AWS free subscription for this hands-on project? Sorry, once again. Okay, perfect. As I mentioned, for this particular program, we asked participants to create a free trial account. Would be more than enough to, start learning MLOps on AWS, Azure, and GCP basically. Okay, then we have other use cases. Will there be any use cases on edge devices like a Xenon server and deployment? Okay, that's a good question. So definitely we're going to talk about edge devices. There's a separate few chapters and slides for that. Definitely going to talk about different frameworks that is available like SageMaker, Neo, model compression techniques, AWS Greengrass and those stuff. But definitely we didn't plan for, let's say, deployment of an edge devices because that goes out of a topic. But that would be the topic. Let's say if you guys are requesting for, I mean, it depends on the participant's request, but it is not part of a live session. It might be part of, let's say, a debugging session. If participants request, based on a participant's request, sometimes we consider that and we arrange for that specific demos in our debugging sessions. So Nihal asked another question. But do product managers and MLOps can get hand in hand? Yes, definitely, because we have a person, a previous candidate who is coming from a product management background and he has a good knowledge on DevOps. And again, I could able to say, based on his experience, I suggested, okay, MLOps lead roles could be a perfect role for you. And now he has started applying for that particular. So Raghu asked a question, is it possible to share this event recordings? Yes, you will be receiving an access to this particular recordings maybe by tomorrow. Okay. So in the meantime, you guys asking more questions. I'm going to quickly check whether my production model is deployed. Perfect. You can see that my production model is deployed. I will go to my production endpoint. Similarly, I'm going to grab my endpoint name. I'm going to go back to my, here we go. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me go to my Jupyter Notebooks. Where is my Jupyter Notebooks? There's a lot of screens. Okay, here we go. I'm going to replace my endpoint here. This is my production endpoint name. Okay, I'm going to save it. Similarly, I'm going to run it. You can see that it works like magic. So now I showed you in this SageMaker pipeline that I've built. So how I manage to build, try, deploy my ML models on a dev and production environment. So this is the pipeline that I built. Okay, perfect. Saying this, let me just spare a few more minutes to answer your questions. Okay, feel free to ask your questions. Feel free to unmute your mic and talk to me. Once again, I'm sure going to share the registration details in a chat window. The first is link for registration, and second link is for downloading a curriculum, and third link where you can able to download a free ebooks, and below is the contact information of mine if you have further questions to ask. And again, the offer is not for everyone. Okay, as I mentioned, the free upgradation offer, it's only for 10 people, strictly till 13th of June. People who register till 13th of June, all you need to do, get basic plan. We will be upgrading it to advanced plan completely for free. Register for advanced plan, we will be upgrading you to advanced plus plan completely for free. Only for 10 registrations till 13th of June actually, because we cannot afford a lot of free upgradations, because usually we do provide it as a campaign offer for first week after launching a campaign. Perfect. Saying this, please do mention if you have any questions in the chat window. Let me just check the chat window for any questions that you have mentioned. Let me scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. So Ajay just mentioned in a previous chat, perfect curriculum and very impressive. Thank you so much. Okay, so can you tell me exactly covered how, I mean, can you tell me what exactly covered how it will benefit? I guess that's what exactly we are talking right now. Perfect. Okay, I don't see any questions in the top. Let me just scroll down. Perfect, folks. If you have any questions, feel free to go. Okay, we have another question from Nihal. Perfect. Okay, is it the only way to deploy models to production in AWS? Can we not do it only on SageMaker by running inference pipeline? Okay, let me just read it once again. Is this the only? Okay, you mean, okay, is this the only way to deploy your production models to production to AWS by using SageMaker pipelines, or is there any other way? Yes, there is a way. Let's say what you can do, you can directly go to Amazon SageMaker. Let's say if I'm an Amazon SageMaker console, yeah, I can able to use my notebook instances. You can see that I go to my notebooks, I can see I have an existing notebook instances. Here you can able to write a script in order to, let's say you have an existing model, you want to deploy to the production, you can deploy it to the production, doesn't matter. But what about automation, right? What about the CI/CD? So you don't want to, let's say, okay, now you have deployed your ML model to production. After 3 months, let's say you want to retrain it. The question is, how are you going to retrain it? Are you going to come to just Jupyter notebooks? Are you going to come to this notebook and go to manually hit run button to train your ML model? No, right? That's not the standard practice what we want. We want to be automated, right? So what happens? Let's consider you can able to set a schedule. Let's consider that your customer data is coming something like this. Let's say your customer data is coming every 6 months. Means every 6 months you want to retrain your ML model. You can able to set a schedule. So you will be producing a new ML version, let's say a version 2, and this version 2 will be deployed. So this would be a one way, an automated way. Otherwise, let's say you have a model, let's say you're monitoring your ML model. Let's say whenever there is a drift, so whenever there is a drift has been identified, you want your pipelines to retrain with the new data that you have. So this is the automation what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Nitin. Thanks for that. Nitin says thank you. That's a wonderful session. Perfect. Please don't miss this.
One more question. Can I ask one? Yeah, can you also give me a little brief about what Kubernetes is?
Okay, so I would really take the complete time just to teach end to end what is exactly Kubernetes is, but I will just provide you an insight what is exactly Kubernetes is. Okay, perfect. Let's consider this. Okay, let's go to Paint. Okay, so because I didn't arrange any tools, I will just go to Paint. Let's say, for example, Kubernetes is nothing but orchestration work. What do you mean by orchestration? Let's say, let's talk about orchestra. You might have heard about music orchestra, right? There is a conductor, right? There is a conductor, for example, if you remember that particular conductor with a big stick, like a big stick. I mean, I'm trying to draw some diagrams. Okay, big stick who is trying to control the entire musicians over there, right? So you could able to see this orchestra where a lot of musicians sitting in different things who is actually like tuning the, I mean, who is producing a music. This particular conductor was trying to control all this musicians. That is basically orchestra. Right? So that is what exactly a Kubernetes is. A Kubernetes is nothing but where you have a group of containers working together. Let's say you have one container, something like this. Let's say you have a one container for data preparation. You have another container for model training. You have another container for model evaluation. You have another container for model deployment. Okay, so you want this group of containers to work in an orchestrated way, in a structured way. How do you manage that? That's where Kubernetes comes into the picture. Yeah.
Oh. And can you just tell me what a container is?
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what is this container? Let's go to paint again. Folks, in the meantime, I'm answering the questions. You can just feel free to mention your questions in the chat window. I know a lot of people might be excited. So consider that. Let's say, let's talk about a data preparation container. Okay. So what do you do? Let's say if you don't want to prepare your data on container, what we do? Let's say we write a Python script, right? Let's say we use Python script .trying.py file. Let's say we write all the Python code here, and in order to support this .py file, we need to install a lot of libraries, right? You might need scikit-learn, you might need pandas, numpy, all this stuff. So what happens? You do install this everything in a single PC, right? And let's say, and you need other things. You need to also download a data. You need to download a data, right, from some environment. So let's say this is my PC, right? And let's say this is your PC. I mean the PC of a person who is asking a question. So let's say I trained my ML model and I tested it. Everything is perfectly working fine here. Okay. So then let's say I'm passing this code or dependencies. I mean not dependencies. Let's say I'm passing this code, everything to my PC. I mean to your PC, right? Where you are trying to replicate the same environment here. But you cannot 100% expect the environment that you have, the way it works, it doesn't work on your PC over here. Because it might say that you might have some different Python versions, some different packages might be missing. You don't have a libraries that you have over here. You need to do all this manual work. And again, if you're going to pass this work again to a different person where you want to replicate, again, he faces the same problem. Instead of that, what I do, I pack this Python file into Docker. This libraries, I ask this Docker to install, and I have all the links where I want to download the data. I have this Docker image. I pass it to person number 1, person number 2, person number n, any persons. The Docker, I mean the way I pack my Docker image, it exactly works in this environment or another person's environment without any issues with the dependency. I mean, this is what exactly Docker is in pretty much a layman terms. Perfect.
So what is a container?
So, okay, Docker image is basically where you have a template, okay, where you say this is the version of a code, this is the version of a library that I need to install, this is the code that I'm going to use. Container servers, otherwise, is a place where you run your actual Docker image. A Docker image is a template where you run it. If you want to run a container, you need an image. I mean, you need a computer. You need some computer. I mean, a CPU, a memory to run it. A Docker service is nothing but a daemon, basically, which helps you to run a Docker service, pretty much.
So
Perfect.
container is a service where you can run your Docker image.
Docker images, yeah, exactly. So Nihal has another question: is data engineering is also necessary for MLOps? Nihal, as I mentioned, it depends on you, Nihal. Let's say, for example, If you say that I'm a data scientist, let's say you are an ML engineer. Okay. Let's say, for example, as an ML engineer, let's say you're trying to learn MLOps. Okay, you might ask a question. Do I need to learn data science? Do I need to learn data engineering? Not necessary. Let's say as an ML engineer, you're upgrading an MLOps tool in your resume. You're not transforming yourself into data scientist. You're not transforming yourself into data engineering here, right? That's a difference. Let's say it depends on your current experience. Let's say Nihal, you have a good skills in DevOps. So in that way, you will be migrating into ML engineering. That means you will be having your dedicated tools or maybe the skills that you need to learn. You're not transforming yourself into data scientist roles, or you're not transforming yourself into data engineering roles. But otherwise, if you're going to ask, okay, I'm going to apply for those lead roles, MLOps engineer, MLOps solution architect. So definitely you need to have some idea of what is data engineering, what are the tools, all those stuff. Perfect, folks. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Okay, Nihal asked another question. Do MLOps people have to work extensively with data processing and feature engineering? Probably not. Otherwise, let's say, for example, so you are a data scientist. So you will be completely responsible for working with building an ML models, producing the high quality ML model. And let's say as part of MLOps, he will be working with data versioning tools. You need to know how to pull the data. He'll be working with feature stores. He'll be working with model registries, all those stuff. When it comes to ML engineers, let's say they will be working with CI/CD pipelines, model monitoring tools, testings, all those stuff. And their data engineers, they will be working with data version control tools. They will be working with Git-based tools for versioning their code and more, for example. But as part of an MLOps, everyone should have an idea. Let's say, even though if you're a data engineer, you should have an idea of what is exactly what data scientists are doing. That doesn't mean that you are transforming yourself into data scientist role, right? So that's a difference. So Nihal asked another question on which feature store do you use for Azure? Okay, that's a good question. So when it comes to Azure, Azure doesn't have any feature store by itself. Azure and SageMaker has their own feature store. Vertex has their own feature store. When it comes to Azure, Azure does use open source feature store. As I mentioned, they use Feast feature store, which is actually part of our program. Okay, how feature store is different from feature engineering? So feature engineering is a bit different. So let's say we do pre-process our data. Feature store is a schema repository. So let's say, consider that you have 3 versions of a feature. How do you have 3 versions of a feature? Let's say initially an organization, they get started with the initial features. Once the business started growing, what happens? They merge 2 features into 1 feature. So then you produce the new feature version actually. So in tomorrow, you might introduce a new feature, for example. So and how are you going to version your features, for example? That's where feature versioning comes into the picture. We use feature stores in order to version our feature, to manage the schema of it. So feature engineering is something that we call it for, okay, we pick a feature, we produce new feature, and let's say we do feature engineering stuff, processing the data, transforming it, that pretty much. Okay, folks, I'm going to spare 5 more minutes. In case if you have any questions, please let me know. If you want to unmute your mic, if you want to talk to me, Ajay, it may be Ankit, Babu, D'Souza. So hi D'Souza. So D'Souza is a person again who attended our MLOps masterclass that we have conducted previously. We have Deep. Amit. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. Okay. We have Geeta. I guess Geeta has a lot of questions. That's good. Harish, we have Kuldeep, Mahesh, Nihal. Nihal has a lot of questions. Niranjan, Praveen, we have Rahul, we have Sandeep, Sayed, Sashi, Shaurabh, Shri, Surinder, Swapnil, Tushar, Vinay, Yogesh. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help you. Thanks, Rahul. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your feedback. So this is how our actual live sessions are going to be. It's going to be me who is going to teach you guys. It's going to be more fun, and we're going to have a lot of time actually, because consider that the structure is something like this. What we are discussing, it's a 60 hours program or maybe 7 weekends program. So where you get a lot of personal time of mine in every debugging session if you want to talk something else. Let me just also mention what else that we do, right, in our debugging session. So let's say we can talk about multiple scenarios. Let's say we noticed that people started applying for the jobs after completing 70 or 50% of our curriculum, and people comes with the question, okay, Sharat, this is the job role that I'm talking about, that I'm applying for. Can you help me? Is this really matches my experience or not? Do you think my resume has been updated accordingly? Is there any changes that I need to do? So we do discuss, we do discuss that. Basically, we discuss about the job description and we give suggestions for them. Does our course already covers everything? Is there anything else that you need to prepare apart from this? And what would be the project discussion will looks like based on your experience, right? Kind of a mock interview kind of a stuff. We do also do it in a debugging session. Consider that every Tuesday and Wednesday we'll be having a debugging session that you're able to utilize till completing a program. And again, let's say when you register for either advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, let's say for example what I'm talking about, let's say you register for our advanced plus, you get instant access today itself, and you can get started with your actual program, and where you get access to the support today itself, right? Basically what happens, people take advanced plus for one reason, because they get enough time right now. They go through the recordings, they come prepared, and once attending a live sessions, they get more clarity. Let's say they might ask a lot of questions again and again to me, right? Yeah. Okay, we have a few more questions. I really appreciate that. She asked the questions in your course when working with open source tools like MLflow and DBC. Are you planning to use them in a local deployment, or how are you going to be integrated? Perfect question. So when it comes to MLflow, we're going to show you how exactly industry operates. We're going to deploy MLflow stack on cloud platform. Either we use AWS, Azure, or GCP. It's not going to happen in a local. But when it comes to DBC, we're going to show, obviously the commands will be running. DBC is going to use as a command line interface. But even though when we are using DBC, we're going to use cloud platform as a storage platform in order to store our data. No local, no basics. Not like an introduction. It's going to be completely cloud-based, giving a clarity for you guys like how industry operates tomorrow when you're going to work for them. Because that's why the actual program is called MLOps Specialization. It's a program where you become a specialist. Yes, Vinay, all these modules will be covered by me. Yeah. As of right now, there's no other commitments for our next batch, but we have a lot of trainers, but 100% it will be covered by me. Okay, we have another question. Okay, again, it's the same question. Yeah. Perfect. Let me see if you guys have any more questions. Don't miss it, because you cannot get this offer once again, as I mentioned. Even if you're going to call me after 13, Sharat, can I get this free accreditation offer? No, because we cannot afford that. This is only for first time registrations. Just imagine that just by registering for basic plan, you can see that when it comes to basic plan, what is the difference is basic plan is completely designed for, okay, you attend live sessions, you get access to the recordings and debugging sessions and free resource materials. Obviously, there is no exception in what you learn. Either you take basic or advanced plus, right? But the advantage is the features. So consider this bonus reattendance opportunity. Even though worst case scenario, you miss the live sessions, you have an opportunity again in the next batch to take the program once again completely for free, right? Consider that you get recordings of both the sessions, right? This batch and next batch. In case, what if you are upgrading our syllabus in next batch, right? You do upgrade it for free, right? That's the reason. And the 6 months of technical job support, as I mentioned, we do help these participants to streamline their interview processes, helping them discussing about their job roles, right? Or maybe helping them to prepare their resumes. How do you mention your projects on their resume and such stuff? Yep. Please let me know if you folks have any questions. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. You can ask questions with me. Yep. So don't miss it. So the live sessions are starting from 1st of June, but you register for Advanced Plus plan, you get access to the recordings in the next 24 hours. You can get started with our actual session with support. Okay, perfect. I guess I have answered a lot of your questions. Saying that, I guess it's time for signing off. If you have further questions, okay, you can reach out to me this number. I'm available for you guys to support anytime. You can talk to me. We can spend a lot of time discussing about what you guys are doing. So usually when you connect with me in a phone call, first thing we try to analyze what you are doing currently. And maybe few people ask a question, Sharad, I'm coming from DevOps background, but I want to get into MLOps, or maybe to the ML field, how it works. So how do I carry forward my experience? Basically, you might be having 5 to 6 years of experience. Let's consider that. You don't have to just erase that and right. Basically, how do I get back? What kind of a role it will be suited for me? Can I apply for data engineering, data science, or ML engineering? Can I apply for MLOps? How it works, right? First, we analyze that. Then we suggest what kind of a role to apply for that. So that's how we begin a conversation. If you want to talk to me, just ping me in a WhatsApp. The WhatsApp is available for both the numbers. We can connect sometime. We can have a detailed discussion. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this session. I hope we got a clarity what is really MLOps and so where it is leading, because what makes an AI is more powerful is MLOps basically. So because let's say I have a very powerful AI tool, if you don't have an automation around it, that's now going to work, right? So what's running behind this particular AI tools today in the market is those pipelines. Okay, so this is where this MLOps comes into the picture, which is an MLOps specialization program. So thank you so much. I don't see any other questions in the chat window. Thank you so much for considering your valuable time and attending our 2-hour session, and again providing an additional 30 minutes for answering your questions. And don't miss this session. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me. And this offer is only till 13th of June. If you miss 13th of June, probably no upgradations. I'm really sorry because we cannot afford that. Okay. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening. Yeah. Thank you so much and have fun. Thank you so much and bye.